Special match. This is just spectacular. An opportunity to really supercharge our fundraising because we're still about $30,000 behind and for Free Speech TV, and we really need your help. We do, the network does, the whole shooting match. And Vincent in Florida, Sam in Massachusetts, Mac in Colorado, and Steve in New York have tossed together some cash. And so your contributions today will be matched up to $10,000. So whatever you give today will be doubled. So it is a great day. If you have not yet made a contribution to Free Speech TV, if you have not yet joined our family, essentially, and become part of this great little television network that is bringing truth into your home every single day, today is your chance to do so with a punch. And this will be the last one. Tomorrow will be the last day of the pledge, but this is the only match that's coming, to the best of my knowledge, this week. So please call now. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. 877-378-8669. With a $20 gift, you get your choice of the car magnet to help get out the vote. You know, I'm voting, are you? Or the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. These bumper stickers were made for us years ago, actually, by a guy who's a regular listener to the program. He was listening on the radio. This is probably 8-9 years ago. And they have just been so popular. You know, he sent us a couple of boxes of them over the years, just kind of gifts them to us. And I sent a box of them to Free Speech TV, and they were like, oh, these are really great. We should give these away with a $20 gift. And it says, proud student at Thom Hartmann University, you know. And, we like them. And we thank Caleb, the guy who put them together and sent them to us. So anyhow, that's with a $20 gift. With a with a $30 gift, lest we forget, there's the Trump toilet paper. And I just have to tell you, this Trump toilet paper is just, it's so cool. If you know that friends of like mind are coming to visit you, and for a while here, these may be less frequent, right, as we live in the era of mass pandemics. But nonetheless, if you have some friends coming over or family members, and they, and they go use the bathroom, and before they come over, you put the Trump toilet paper in the roll, then it can produce hysteria. One of our kids came over one day, and with her family, and we had put the Trump toilet paper in the guest bathroom, and she came out laughing so hard I thought she was going to fall on the floor. $30 Trump toilet paper. With a $50 gift, you get the Just Effing Vote canvas tote bag. Canvas tote bags are always good, and Just Effing Vote is always a good message. With a $75 gift, you get the Tag You're It Thom Hartmann mug to drink your coffee with in the morning. With a $120 gift, you get a variety of things that you can choose from. There's the Hidden History of the War on Voting, the Republican War on Voting, that book, which tells the story of how the GOP, once they decided, hey, that they were never going to do anything for average working people in the United States. They were just all in with the billionaires and the big polluting corporations. They had the 1% vote, but how did they get the 99% vote? And through the Reagan era and all this, they tried just BSing us, basically, and it sort of worked for a while. And then people figured it out, just like they're figuring it out with Trump right now. And so what did? They moved over into voter suppression, to prevent people from voting. Or if they do vote, give them provisional ballots and don't count their votes. And this strategy over the last 20 years, since the 2000 election, when it was tried fairly clumsily by George W. Bush and his brother Jeb Bush, has been super fine-tuned. And this book lays it out in a small and easily read format. This is the Supreme Court book, but it's this size. It's like 180 pages. So anyway, that's with a $120 gift, or you can get one of two T-shirts. One of them is Just Effing Vote, and the other is Ask Me About Free Speech TV, which is a fine thing. With a $240 gift, we can get together on Skype or Zoom or whatever they ultimately decide to use and hang out and have a conversation. That's our virtual meet and greet. That's with a $240 gift. With a $300 gift, there's the official Free Speech TV Get Out the Vote pack, which includes the Free Speech TV host postcards to send to friends and family to tell them about Free Speech TV and the various shows. There is the car magnet that you saw earlier. There's the Just Effing Vote tote bag, and my book, The Hidden History of the War on Voting. And all these books, all of my books, actually they're the only books we're offering right now, are autographed by the author. They're signed by me. With a $360 gift, there is a 3-book set, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court, The Hidden History of the War on Voting, and The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, all 3 autographed by the author. The gun book tells about how basically the racist history of the Second Amendment, and the Supreme Court book about how we've been screwed by the Supreme Court. And with a $1,000 gift, there's the meet and greet, come to Portland and hang out with us when things settle down. But the bottom line is we really need your help. We need it now, and it will be doubled. 877-378-8669.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Happy Thursday. Thom Hartmann here with you. I am broadcasting from home today out of just an absolute abundance of caution because we don't have any testing kits. And I think we all need to take this seriously. In a way, I'm trying to provide an example. Nate and Sean and we're trying to figure out how, if it's even possible for all of us to work from home, to remotely run our show. But this is the starting point. And just in case, I've been on a bunch of airplanes in the last couple of weeks. That's a risk, I suppose. All of us. We just all need to be taking this very, very thoughtfully and carefully. Tom Hanks and his wife were in Australia, and he said, we felt a little tired, like we had colds and some body aches. Rita, his wife, had some chills that came and went, slight fevers. So being in Australia, of course, you can walk into any clinic anywhere and get an instant virus test. And so they walked in and they got a virus test, and it came back positive for both of them. Now, of course, in the United States, you can't do that. You've got to be really, really sick, which means that you've already gone through a week and a half of shedding viruses all over around everybody you know. And then, if you also have the flu, you won't get tested. And odds are, no matter what, you may not get tested. I mean, this is just really mind-boggling stuff. And, I've mentioned I've got 2 kids who are in primary health care here in Portland. And one of them just texted me this morning. Community spread here in Portland is starting to really accelerate. We're getting a lot of reports. I think without being hysterical, it's time for us to get very concerned and take this very seriously. And if you can work from home, do it. Essentially self-quarantine for a while, at least until the United States catches up with the rest of the world. This, in terms of testing, I mean, this is the thing. Why can't we get tested? Last night on Rachel Maddow's show on MSNBC, she had on Ron Klein. Ron Klein is the guy who President Obama had put in charge of Ebola. He was Obama's Ebola czar. And when she said to him, why is it that, in South Korea they got to drive up? I mean, you want to get tested? It's like, it's like driving through the bank, right? Or driving through the local coffee place. You just drive up, they stick a swab in your mouth, stick it in a tube, put your name on it, and you drive off. And the person taking the test is not exposed to you, and you're not exposed to other people who might be positive. And as a consequence of doing this now, South Korea has tested, a couple 100,000 people, or over 100,000 people. I think maybe it's over 200. I'll find the numbers here as we go through the information. As a consequence of doing this, South Korea has actually seen the numbers of infections start to level off. And, they're starting to get control of the situation, but you can't have control of the situation when you don't know who's sick, particularly when the first 4 or 5, the average time from the time a person is infected until the time they show symptoms is 5 days, but it can be as much as 14 days. And during much or most of that period of time, you're actually shedding viruses. and spreading them around. Thinking of my flights on the airplanes. Yesterday, there was an article in one of the science journals about how they have now figured out the surfaces that are the most hostile and the least hostile to these viruses. I mean, I was telling you yesterday that the Federal Reserve is refusing to take currency, U.S. dollars, repatriated U.S. dollars that are coming back from China. The Federal Reserve is saying, no, we don't want them. China is burning their own currency and printing new currency because they believe that the disease can be passed, via currency. So this article that I was reading yesterday was answering the question: can I get the coronavirus from my mail or from the package that Amazon drops off? And it turns out that on cardboard shipping containers and things like that, the virus can last up to a day. On plastic shipping containers and plastic and the stuff inside the shipping container, if somebody who was infected handled it and put it in there, on plastic it can last typically 1 to 2 days. And the surface that the coronavirus likes the most, because it's completely inert, doesn't mess with it, it doesn't like copper. In copper, it can only last four hours. But the surface it likes the most is stainless steel. And I'm thinking, what's the thing that I'm most in contact with that's made out of stainless steel? Oh yeah, seatbelt buckles on airplanes. And how many people have handled that belt buckle before I did in the last 3 days? And how many times has that seatbelt buckle been sterilized by the airline? I guarantee you, it's zero, right? Maybe not now, maybe they're starting to, but I mean, this is, so I think we all need to get a little OCD here. But anyhow, Rachel Maddow was asking Ron Klein, who was, as I said, Obama's Ebola czar. She was asking Ron Klein, why don't we have testing kits? Why is it that we can't identify these people who might be working in the Amazon storage place or might be delivering your food from Grubhub or whatever, or might be the person sitting next to you at work who's just feeling a little under the weather like Tom Hanks was, or has just had a little fever a couple days ago and some chills and it went away like Tom Hanks' wife did. Why is it that we can't identify these people? Why can't I walk down to my CVS and just say, I feel a little under the weather. Would you stick that swab in my mouth and see if I've got the coronavirus? And they could do it, and they could say, nope, you don't have it, or yes, you do, you need to go home and lock the doors. You know what I mean. Don't infect other people. Why? Well, Ron Klein, Obama's czar, for the Ebola crisis, said that the word that he used was that Trump, quote, privatized the testing here in the United States. That was the word or the phrase that Ron Klein used. In fact, we had recorded the show last night. I went back and played it a second time to make sure I got it right. He said that the tests that Trump had privatized, these two, were from two companies, Quest Labs and LabCorp here in the United States, big testing companies, very profitable testing companies, probably testing companies that kick a lot of money into the pockets of politicians, maybe even Republican politicians, who knows. But instead of taking the World Health Organization test kits, which are manufactured in 3 different countries now, and they're available all over the world, they're cheap, they work, they're fast, rapid results. You don't need reagents and all kinds of wacky stuff, and we'll get to that in just a minute. Instead of taking those World Health Organization tests, because that's government stuff, right? Trump decided to privatize it. And so for 3 months now, we've known that this virus was coming. We've known that it's here, actually, for 2.5 months. And we can't test anybody. We've tested fewer than 5,000 people nationwide. Now you've got states like Washington State coming up with their own tests and saying, screw the federal government, we're going to do it ourselves. And these two companies say that they're going to have tens of thousands of test kits available real soon. Remember last week, Mike Pence said it would be this week? I don't see any. And then this raises the question, Alex Azar is the head of HHS, which arguably would be in charge of a lot of this stuff. He's the health guy, Health and Human Services. Before that, the reason that Trump picked him for that job is because he used to be the CEO of Lilly. Lilly, when he was CEO of Lilly, he doubled the price of insulin. That was his main claim to fame, Alex Azar. So the question I'm asking and wondering is, do Trump and Azar own stock in Quest and LabCorp? Is that what this is about? I mean, consider Trump just issued a travel ban to every country in Europe except the ones where he's got a bunch of hotels. He's got 2 hotels in Scotland and 1 in Ireland. Those are all part of the United Kingdom. No travel ban to the United Kingdom, even though they have more of this stuff than a lot of the other European countries.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
So anyhow, we'll be taking your calls, but I've got a lot more to go through here on the news. Stick around. Thom Hartmann here with you, broadcasting live from home. And welcome back. Jeff in Seattle. Hey, Jeff, what's up?
Tom, hi. Thanks for taking my call. I've been listening to you since the Brunch with Bernie days. And,
my.
But
Thank you.
I've got a bone to pick with you.
Mm-hmm.
The other day you said stay away from restaurants. And
yes, and any other public
really
place, and I stand by that.
Okay, but I still
just opening the door to the restaurant. If somebody has the coronavirus and they have the sniffles, and they just wiped their nose on their hand, and then reach out and open the door to the restaurant, that door to that restaurant for the rest of the day is a source of contamination for everybody who walks in. And it's not just restaurants. This is why Italy has shut down every business in the country except for grocery stores and pharmacies. Those are the only kinds of businesses that are allowed to operate. We need, Nancy Pelosi is putting together legislation to help small businesses like restaurant owners and other small businesses through this. This is going to get really bad really fast, Jeff. And to go out. No, there is no meantime. It's here right now.
We've got restaurants shutting their doors. They can't stay open. We've got other restaurants saying, please come in. We bleach our restaurant twice a day. We bleach it at every table after the people have left. Please come back and patronize. There are things you can do, like buying gift cards, or getting the delivery service to bring it. That way, both the restaurant and the service person get paid. But this is really hurting the economy here in Seattle, and I just want to be aware.
Oh, it is all over, and it will all over the country. And those are a couple of good solutions, Jeff. And as I said, I was talking about this on Monday or Tuesday about that restaurant chain in California. It's 3 different restaurants this goes back to December, and it's because it's a Chinese restaurant, and they have relatives in China, and they were hearing the story of what was going on in China, and they were simply emulating what the Chinese are doing, which is if you walk into that restaurant, they measure your temperature with one of these little forehead testers, and if you're running a fever, they walk you right back out.
Sure, okay, granted.
So if you've got restaurants that are doing, that are cleaning the front door every time somebody comes in and are testing people's temperatures and are washing everything down with bleach and are testing their employees and they publicize that, then, I would go to a restaurant like that today. But I don't know of any restaurants that are openly advertising that in the Portland area. If there are in Seattle, good on them. In fact, mention their names right here on the air.
They're begging you to come in. They're begging people to come in because they don't want to go under.
Of course.
So I will patronize restaurants in a limited fashion and being safe for myself and for others.
Yeah. The other thing is, and when we went to a restaurant with our kids a couple of nights ago here in Portland, because it had been booked for months and, we'd been looking forward to it, and we thought, well, we'll take a chance. Sure. When I opened the door, I had a coat on, and I put my hand in my coat pocket, and I opened the door with the inside of my coat rather than my hand. Sure. It's like, when you're walking out of the bathroom, you take that paper towel that you used to wash your hands with and wipe down the door. I mean, we know these things. This isn't rocket science, but, it's like we haven't,
I thought we would have flying cars by now, but they were being taught how to wash our hands.
Yeah, there you go. Jeff, thanks a lot for the call. Your point's well taken. I appreciate it. We'll be right back. Our 1 hour free podcast recaps our show, and it's available wherever fine podcasts are found. And we have the full 3 hour podcast available over at thomhartmann.com if you want to really support our program. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It is getting even weirder out there with regard to the coronavirus and the economy. Of course, last night Donald Trump went on TV and told a bunch of lies, told a bunch of, it started out with a bunch of spin. This Chinese virus, at one point he called it that. He says, it came from China. And then at another point he says, we're having to deal with a foreign virus. Well, yeah, right. Yes, it came from China. And yes, China didn't handle it well initially. And yes, China has their act together. But it has been 3 months since Donald Trump was told this was coming to the United States. And he's still, he held a press conference this morning with the President or Prime Minister of Ireland. And, he's still talking about, well, we just have a few thousand cases. Other countries have hundreds of thousands. This is tragic. And that the President of the United States would go on TV and during a public health emergency, not talk about, in a serious way, about public health measures. We have 1 million hospital beds and 150,000 respirators in this country. They're both typically between 75 and 85% utilization, which means we've got a couple 100,000 hospital beds and a few tens of thousands of respirators. And we are going to need, if the new numbers that are being published right now, that there's a doctor for Congress, and what he told Congress yesterday is we could see 40 to 150 million people in the United States infected. Now, if that happens rapidly, and if it does happen rapidly, by the way, it'll be purely because we weren't testing people, and thus there was a lot of community spread. But if that happens rapidly, we are going to overwhelm our ability to offer hospitalization to people. It's just going to completely overwhelm it. And this is going to overwhelm our hospital systems. Another reason why we all need to hunker down to the extent that we can, stay out of public places, and work from home if you can, as I'm trying to set a good example here for you all. And also, I just walking into my office building, I'd gotten in the habit of not opening the door with my hand, but opening it with the inside of the coat of my the pocket of my coat. Or I wear my gloves until I'm inside the office. It's kind of cold here. It was 35 this morning. But anyhow, you got Trump just telling these lies, and he wasn't talking. This is why the Dow Jones futures last night dropped all the way to the circuit breaker, all the way to 5 points in the hour around his speech, was because he didn't come out and say, we have a public health emergency that is going to require a public health response. And so I am right now I'm declaring a state of emergency so that to release $40 million of FEMA funds. We're going to have FEMA set up in our major cities. We're going to have FEMA set up basically triage units, MASH units, where we can have functional, essentially little mini ICUs, and we can deal with people separate from the hospitals, so that so if somebody has a heart attack, they're not going to go to the hospital and contract the coronavirus. Right? This is what he should have said as a starting point. He should have said, everybody in America will be able to get tested with or without a doctor's slip. We don't want to overwhelm our doctors. Everybody in America can give it, just like in South Korea right now, you can just drive up. If you think you should be tested, that's good enough. Go down to your local CVS and get tested. Go to your local, gas station and get tested. Whatever it may be. This is what he should have been saying. Instead, he gave us happy talk. And he tried to talk the stock market back up. And he talked about how, we've got the greatest healthcare system in the world. No, we're 34 in the world in terms of maternal and infant mortality. We're at the bottom of the OECD countries. We're in the bottom middle in terms of just lifespan. And now we're discovering that one of the key ingredients for these test kits, it's called a reagent. Or, a reagent is something that, well, in this case, what it's used to do is you take your saliva or whatever and you put it in the reagent, and it basically breaks up. It's a chemical that breaks up the cell membranes, both the outer cell membrane and the nuclear cell membrane, the nucleus of the cell, exposing the DNA to the liquid. So then you can take you can extract the DNA and look for DNA specific to the coronavirus. Okay, so that's how you do it. Well, those reagents are running. The world is running out of those reagents, which is not a problem for South Korea and China and a lot of other countries that have lots and lots of reagents. But it is a problem for us here in the United States. And now you've got Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. They wanted to start doing coronavirus tests, but they couldn't obtain the RNA extraction kits. Mangling tests and kits, my apologies. They said that this is a shortage now. Judd Legum reporting over at popular.info. This is a problem in labs across the country. There's one company that makes these. It's called Qiagen. It's a Dutch diagnostics company. Trump could have talked last night about how they actually have a manufacturing facility here in Massachusetts in the United States, or in Maryland rather. He could have said, we're gonna help manufacture more of these test kits. But no, he's outsourced this to a couple of big lab companies, and this is where we're at. And don't forget, back in 2018, 2 years ago, Trump fired and closed down, or actually John Bolton did it on Trump's orders, fired and shut down the offices in the Homeland Security Department and the Office of National Security, the National Security Director's office, that were in charge of pandemic diseases. So, we're really behind the eight ball here, and there's nobody in the White House doing anything of consequence.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And what was Trump's big solution for the economy last night? Oh, we're going to help out workers and everybody else. We're going to let Nancy Pelosi figure it out. Right. Special match. This is just spectacular. An opportunity to really, really, really supercharge our fundraising, because we're still about $30,000 behind, and for Free Speech TV, and we really need your help. We do, the network does, the whole shooting match. And Vincent in Florida, Sam in Massachusetts, Mac in Colorado, and Steve in New York have tossed together some cash. And so your contributions today will be matched up to $10,000. So whatever you give today will be doubled. So it is a great day. If you have not yet made a contribution to Free Speech TV, if you have not yet joined our family, essentially, and become part of this great little television network that is bringing truth into your home every single day, today is your chance to do so with a punch. And this will be the last one. Tomorrow will be the last day of the pledge, but this is the only match that's coming, to the best of my knowledge, this week. So please call now. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. 877-378-8669. With a $20 gift, you get your choice of the car magnet to help get out the vote. I'm voting, are you? Or the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. These bumper stickers were made for us years ago, actually, by a guy who's a regular listener to the program. He was listening on the radio. This is probably 8-9 years ago. And they have just been so popular. He sent us a couple of boxes of them over the years, just kind of gifts them to us. And I sent a box of them to Free Speech TV, and they were like, oh, these are really great. We should give these away with a $20 gift. And it says, proud student at Thom Hartmann University, And, we like them. And we thank Caleb, the guy who put them together and sent them to us. So anyhow, that's with a $20 gift. With a with a $30 gift, lest we forget, there's the Trump toilet paper. And I just have to tell you, this Trump toilet paper is just, it's so cool. If you know that friends of like mind are coming to visit you, and for a while here, these may be less frequent, right, as we live in the era of mass pandemics. But nonetheless, if you have some friends coming over or family members, and they, and they go use the bathroom, and before they come over, you put the Trump toilet paper in the roll, then it can produce hysteria. One of our kids came over one day, and with her family, and we had put the Trump toilet paper in the guest bathroom, and she came out laughing so hard I thought she was going to fall on the floor. $30 Trump toilet paper. With a $50 gift, you get the Just Effing Vote canvas tote bag. Canvas tote bags are always good, and Just Effing Vote is always a good message. With a $75 gift, you get the Tag You're It Thom Hartmann mug to drink your coffee with in the morning. With the $120 gift, you get a variety of things that you can choose from. There's the Hidden History of the War on Voting, the Republican War on Voting, that book, which tells the story of how the GOP, once they decided, hey, that they were never going to do anything for average working people in the United States. They were just all in with the billionaires and the big polluting corporations. They had the 1% vote, but how did they get the 99% vote? And through the Reagan era and all this, they tried just BSing us basically, and it sort of worked for a while. And then people figured it out, just like they're figuring it out with Trump right now. And so what did they do? They moved over into voter suppression, to prevent people from voting. Or if they do vote, give them provisional ballots and don't count their votes. And this strategy over the last 20 years, since the 2000 election, when it was tried fairly clumsily by George W. Bush and his brother Jeb Bush, has been super fine-tuned. And this book lays it out in a small and easily read format. This is the Supreme Court book, but it's this size. It's like 180 pages. So anyway, that's with a $120 gift, or you can get one of two T-shirts. One of them is or Just Effing Vote, and the other is Ask Me About Free Speech TV, which is a fine thing. With a $240 gift, we can get together on Skype or Zoom or whatever they ultimately decide to use, and hang out and have a conversation. That's our virtual meet and greet. That's with a $240 gift. With a $300 gift, there's the official Free Speech TV Get Out the Vote pack, which includes the Free Speech TV host postcards to send to friends and family to tell them about Free Speech TV and the various shows. There is the car magnet that you saw earlier. There's the Just Effing Vote tote bag, and my book, The Hidden History of the War on Voting. And all these books, all of my books, actually they're the only books we're offering right now, are autographed by the author. They're signed by me. With a $360 gift, there is a 3-book set, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court, The Hidden History of the War on Voting, and The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, all 3 autographed by the author. The gun book tells about how basically the racist history of the Second Amendment, and the Supreme Court book about how we've been screwed by the Supreme Court. And with a $1,000 gift, there's the meet and greet, come to Portland and hang out with us when things settle down. But the bottom line is we really need your help, and we need it now, and it will be doubled. 877-378-8669. Thank you. Coming up on the Science Revolution this week, first, Trump is using the same logic on COVID-19 that he used for pesticides and pollution. And I'll explain why that's not a good thing. Nilay Marian, Forestry and Biodiversity Framework Coordinator with Friends of the Earth International, is here. Can we stop mass extinctions? Eva Hamer, Legal Coordinator of Direct Action Everywhere, drops by on her article, Why I Went Topless at Costco. Plus, geeky science. This is what happens when public transit is free. But wait, there's more. Tune in to the Science Revolution wherever fine podcasts are found. So a little more coronavirus news. The entire country of Norway just shut down. Denmark did it yesterday. I believe it was Denmark. It might have been Finland, but it was one of those other countries up there. But Norway did it today. If you think this is from theweek.com. If you think things have gotten bad in the United States, where we've canceled St. Patrick's Day parades and the NBA just suspended their season, just wait till you hear about Norway. Starting Thursday, that's today, the small Nordic country announced measures that will be the most extensive Norway's population has experienced in peacetime. That's a quote from the Norwegian government. And here's exactly what they're doing. And frankly, I think that probably fairly soon, you are going to see cities in the United States doing the same thing. And I'm frankly surprised that some of the suburbs of Seattle haven't done this, and I hope that they're having conversations about this in other places, in Portland and other places. And I realize that this is a huge hit to small businesses, and we need to do something about that. Congress needs to do something about that. Trump gave it some lip service last night. He is making no specific proposals. He's expecting Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell to handle all this. Nancy Pelosi can do it. In fact, she's got legislation right now in the pipeline to deal with this. But Mitch McConnell is like, well, we'll get to that in a second. But anyhow, back to Norway. Bent Høie, the Norwegian Minister of Health and Care, yesterday told the Norwegian broadcaster NRK, in addition to kindergartens, child care facilities, schools, and universities closing nationwide and a ban on professional and amateur sports, the entire country of Norway is also requiring all hairdressers, massage clinics, gyms, and tattoo parlors to close. Cultural events are banned. Museums, pools, and libraries are closed, while grocery stores will be allowed to remain open. Restaurants, bars, pubs, and nightclubs are required to close if they can't guarantee a 3-foot distance between patrons. All buffets are shut down. Anyone entering Norway from any other country outside of the Nordic, the three or four Nordic countries, will be required to home quarantine regardless of symptoms, one of the most drastic measures taken in Europe so far. Healthcare officials are no longer allowed to travel abroad, and the country is encouraging its citizens who are traveling abroad to return home at once. All of Europe has 632 positive cases as of this morning, and which is, fewer than the United States. And all of Europe has a population that's about 2.5, 3 times. I think there's 800 million people in Europe, larger than the United States, but this is where we're at. And meanwhile, Trump says, we're going to ban travel from Europe. Well, we're not. We're not going to ban Americans traveling to and from Europe. And we're not going to ban anyone who wants to travel to Ireland or Scotland, the countries where there are 3 Trump properties that are all struggling. And or England, where, actually all 3, arguably. Boris Johnson is the prime minister, and he's Trump's good buddy, and they campaigned for each other and all this kind of stuff. So that is what's going on, and it is to call it a mess would be an understatement. So anyhow, let's pick up some of your phone calls here. Robert in Kimberly, Oregon. Hey, Robert, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom, big fan. Thanks. Keep up the good work. So
Thanks.
A month ago or so, you said that the contagious rate or the level of passability was relatively low compared to malaria and such. How did that change, or?
I don't know that I ever compared it to malaria, or if I did, I would have been reading from something. It's typically been compared to the flu or the common cold. And but it appears that that transmission rates, that it's called the R naught, which is the number of people that the average person will infect, basically, is between 2 and 3. But so in an environment where you have no testing, I'm guessing that number is going to be much higher.
So this morning, Morning Joe, doctor said, quote unquote, it will be back in the fall, presuming it's going to take a break for the summer. But Tom Hanks and his wife are in summer in Australia now. How?
Yeah. we don't know if this virus is seasonal. I mean, the seasonality of the flu and the common cold seem to have to do with those viruses preferring or let me rephrase that, not liking very dry air, that the viruses don't live as long in real dry air. And or no, it's the other way around. I'm sorry. They don't like moist air. in the presence of moisture. And so the viruses are more transmissible when the air is more dry, which is the winter. In the northern hemisphere, it's the summer in the southern hemisphere, or at least that's one theory. I don't know if this is actual scientific fact I'm sharing with you. I've read this. Another theory that I read is that the flu is something that we interchange with birds. Now there are, of course, swine variations, pig variations as well, but these flocks of geese and ducks and things migrate, and that might have something to do with it. There's been a lot of theories over the years, but the bottom line is we don't have any idea.
Hemisphere, are countries in the southern hemisphere reporting cases of COVID-19 currently?
Yes, they are. And we haven't seen large outbreaks like we've seen in the north. Well, large chunks of China are, if not in the southern hemisphere, they're in the Florida, southern Georgia kind of climate areas. And, that's, in fact, I believe Wuhan is. I could be wrong on that. It might be more center of the country. But we just don't know yet if this is going to be a seasonal disease. The flu in 1919 started out in the spring as kind of an obnoxious, it killed a bunch of people, but it went away in the summer and everybody thought, okay, everything's good. And then it came back in the fall, and that's when it did, the most damage. So anyhow, Robert, thanks for the call. Zach in North Hollywood, California. Hey, Zach, what's up?
Morning, Tom.
Hey, Zach.
Real quick, just a couple ideas that might be helpful. For one thing, MSNBC, stop doing the slow, dramatic pull-ins on Trump's head and the pullbacks on your opening show with Stephanie Ruhle every morning and your closing show with Brian Williams every night. Just stop. And the second point I'd like...
I've stopped watching those shows. I've gone to CNN.
I just cannot stand the dramatic pull-ins on Trump's head, and they make his head fill up the whole screen.
Oh, and they're also constantly trashing Bernie Sanders. I just
it's just pure propaganda.
I went downstairs yesterday afternoon. I was up here writing. This is my office where I write, and I went downstairs and Louise had the TV on, and I heard somebody with this whiny voice going, "Well, Bernie this and Bernie that, and he would, And I said, "You must be listening to MSNBC." She was like, "Yeah," and so she flips over to CNN. Let's get some news. Anyhow, back to you, Zach.
Yeah, what I'd like to bring up, too, just, me, I'm always trying to think ahead, pull up at 40,000 feet and see the bigger picture. I think a great idea would be to use who's naturally set up for the testing. Starbucks. I see 25 cars a morning in line waiting to get their morning Joe. Have them do it at Starbucks. It's all set up already.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a simple variation on what they're doing in China. I frankly don't think it should be Starbucks. I think it should be a medical professional who is in something that looks like not necessarily a Starbucks, but I don't know if these are all over the country. We certainly have them up here in the Pacific Northwest. But there are these little drive-up places that's just a little shack kind of thing. It looks like the kind of places on the beach in Florida where they make fast food. They sell coffee. In fact, one of them, about a mile down the road, has women in bikinis selling coffee. it's like,
just wear gloves. You know what I've done? I went to the Army surplus.
You put a nurse in there and do. Yeah, go ahead, Zach. I'm sorry.
You know what I've done, and this could be a good tip for people. I went to the Army Navy surplus store in my neighborhood and bought a set of the marine dress cotton gloves, the white gloves.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And then you just wash them. I take them every time I leave the house and go out in public. I wear them, and when I'm handling cash, and then I bring them home and I wash them. And you can you can use bleach on them, and they're great. $4.99 for a pair.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean here it's like I said, it's 35 degrees today. It's spring, but we're having a very, very cold spring, and so I've been wearing gloves, just my old-fashioned gloves, winter gloves, every day, and I wear them when I go out, and if I go into a store, I don't take the gloves off. If I go into a restaurant, I don't take the gloves off until I'm seated at my table. So everything that I'm touching through my gloves, and then I don't touch myself with the gloves, and when I get home, I'll wipe the gloves down with a wet wipe that's got alcohol, and the gloves seem to survive it. It doesn't seem to be a big deal. I mean, it sounds obsessive. It sounds, OCD. And I confess that, my whole entire life I've had a little bit of OCD. But, maybe the gene for OCD is with us because the people with it were the ones who survived the previous epidemics. Zach, thanks a lot for the call. We'll continue our conversations. What's up with Trump? I see John and no, it wasn't. I guess the person who somebody had a comment to make about Prince Harry and Donald Trump. I was going to go through next, but it looks like they hung up. We'll be back anyhow with more of your calls and my thoughts and the news of the day right after this.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And of course, Sunday we've got the debate between Bernie and Joe, and that's been moved to Washington, D.C., and we'll pick that up in the second hour. And welcome back. Dion in Chicago. Hey, Dion, what's on your mind today? Thanks for watching us on YouTube.
Yeah, I came across an article this morning where ex-Iranian Prime Minister Ahmadinejad said this is a bioweapon that was manufactured out of Wuhan labs and that they do have bats of coronavirus. That's a fact. And that came out of the leak.
Yeah, it's that story started in right-wing media, started circulating about, 2-3 months ago. And it was rebutted by the World Health Organization, which said that when you look at the DNA, and China has released the complete, in fact, they did this back in December. They released the complete DNA, whatever you call it, the rundown of adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine, and how they're arranged in the DNA strand. And there is a unique signature to DNA that has been made in a laboratory as opposed to DNA that has evolved inside different kinds of animals. In fact, you can tell if it's a DNA that for a virus that evolved in a mammal versus DNA for a virus that evolved in a bird, which is how they tell swine flu apart from avian flu, bird flu, versus DNA that evolved in a fish. And this DNA evolved in a mammal. And there's no doubt about it. And all that stuff about, this is a bioweapon and it's all China's fault and all that kind of stuff is just nonsense. It's just right-wing crap. John in Aurora, Illinois. Hey, John, what's on your mind today?
Hey, I just wanted to say, earlier a caller called up about the restaurants and everything. I service restaurants, and everything in the restaurants is made out of stainless steel. If you go to the grocery store, think about the slicers when you buy lunch meat. That's all stainless steel. They don't clean very well. And I can guarantee about 95% of the restaurants out there, you'd be disgusted with.
Are you referencing my earlier note that stainless steel is the single surface on which coronavirus lives longest, average 3 days?
I am. And I just think that everything, like if you go to the bakery departments, all the bread and everything that has to do with manufacturing of food is made out of stainless steel. And if most of the people don't clean very well, so I'd be very hesitant of that. And to go with your last caller, the guy who was saying that he was using white gloves, I've been wearing just the nitrile gloves that you just take off and throw in the garbage, like if you're doing an exam. I've been wearing that everywhere because I go in restaurants all day long. I go places and I'm exposed to thousands of people. And the other thing that people don't think about is that these are the least paid people in the country. They don't get time off. They're going to work sick because if they don't go to work, they're not getting paid, and they can't afford. They're the people who can't afford to miss a day.
Right, they end up homeless.
Yeah. So, that's just things to think about. And I don't see anything in Trump's speech yesterday about actually taking care of the people who need to, that this is going to affect. I'm just, I guess you just shut up, but that's my thoughts.
No, I'm with you, John. And we are going to, this is going to be the new normal, at least for a few years, and probably much longer than that. And, it's going to change our lifestyle. It's going to change the way we do business. It's going to change the way we interact with each other. I predict that, we're going to go from being a handshaking society, and Italy is going to go from a cheek-kissing society next. Everybody's going to start adopting, what probably came out of an epidemic 5,000 years ago in India, the bowing society, or in Japan. Thank you, John. Hey, did you know that Hillary Clinton actually won Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Florida in the 2016 election? It's on page 92 of my new book, The Hidden History of the War on Voting. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Francesca in Los Angeles. Hey, Francesca, what's on your mind today?
Hi. When you mentioned Quest Medical Labs, a bell went off in my head from an old news story, and this is a medical factoid that you and your listeners might be interested in, since you did, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you expressed a theory that it's possible that Azar and Trump might own shares in that particular company. I am merely questioning, why would Alex Azar and Donald Trump make the decision to postpone for 3 months testing people in the United States and not allow into the United States, not give FDA certification to the World Health Organization test kits that are being used by every other country in the world? Why would they do that and privatize this to these two companies, Quest Labs and what was it, BioLab or something like that? I forget the name of the company. I'd have to look it up. And when I see Trump putting a travel ban on all of Europe except the one country where he's got 3 hotel properties, I'm starting to think this guy will do anything for money. Well, just a little. This is just not a random factoid. It is specifically about Quest Labs. Like I said, it set off, when you said the name, it set off a bell in my head because I follow a lot of UK and Irish news. Quest Labs is one of 2 American companies. The other one was called Clinical Pathology Laboratories or something like that, called CPL, but Quest Labs set the fire in my head to call you. One of 2 American companies that in about 2006 or 2008, the Republic of Ireland started sending their pap smears to the United States, to these 2 companies, one of which was Quest Labs. It was a huge news story, and it's ongoing because women are still dying from misdiagnosis because of Quest Labs and this other one. And I have Googled. I use DuckDuckGo, so you might get different things on Google. But I Googled Quest Medical Labs, Ireland, and cervical cancer, and there's headlines that you don't even have to read the articles, that your listeners might just get the flavor of it. And if you scroll down the page. And
this is one of the 2 companies that Trump just privatized all the coronavirus testing to.
Quest, yes. Right. Quest is
according. By the way, this is all according.
Women.
Right. This is all according. By the way, we should cite the source here. Last night on Rachel Maddow's show, she had on Ron Klein, who was Obama's Ebola czar, and he was the one who said that Trump had privatized this and then outsourced it to these 2 private for-profit corporations. And like I said, I'm wondering if he owns stock in these companies. It's terrible stuff.
Thousands of Irish women are dead and dying because of Quest.
Amazing.
Just
Francesca, thank you for the call. Yep. Talk to you soon. Robert in Portland. Hey, Robert, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. Agree with you 100% what you've been talking about. And, I know the United States has a shortage of the coronavirus test kits. And I just think about, imagine if all of a sudden we had, say, 10 million kits put on the market or out for the public. Can you imagine what these numbers are going to be, and the fear that really, it's already here, but what will happen when we find out how many more people really do have this virus? We just don't know because we don't have enough kits out there to know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think once the kits are out there, I think it's going to be like, oh my God. I mean, look at the markets, the malls.
We're going to be looking at numbers like Italy. And in some parts of this country, obviously, it's already happening in New Rochelle, and it's happening, and it seems to be sweeping through nursing homes in the Seattle area. And
Yeah.
but we are at the tip of an amplification
We haven't even started.
curve, and the only
haven't-
exactly. I mean, it started months ago, and it's just now starting to really ramp up. And the only way, and ask anybody in epidemiology, the only way to get this under control is to find out who has it and who doesn't, because most of the people who get this disease don't get a serious case of it. They're not highly symptomatic. They think, as Tom Hanks did, that they and his wife, they think that they have a common cold. And they went and got tested, and boom, both of them have coronavirus, which means that they're shedding viruses. They're, and they're contaminating surfaces that they touch. If they touch their mouth or their nose or something like that first, or their tear ducts, this is just crazy. This is just absolutely crazy. So anyway, thank you, Robert. John in Vancouver. Hey, John, what's up?
Hey, Tom, I just wanted to get the message out here. I tweeted you earlier about a week ago. My wife and I have a cold. We're right in the middle of the hot zone, so we're never going to get tested. We're home. We're self-isolating at this point. We just, But I wanted to help, hopefully, a message you will repeat. When it comes to using bleach for disinfectant, you use 1 capful per gallon of cold water. More is not better. Will damage the surfaces you're trying to disinfect. But you have to use cold water, because if you use hot water, all it does is it evaporates the chlorine out of the bleach, which annihilates the disinfecting properties of bleach.
Right. So you're making do-it-yourself disinfectant. Yeah. And
shortage of everything.
And there's nothing wrong with having a gallon of bleach in your house.
No, there's not. But it's one.
Add that to the list when you go to the store and buy 5 pounds of rice and a case of beans.
Get that 98-cent bottle of bleach, and 1 capful per gallon will last you for 6 months of disinfectant.
Yeah. We are all OCD.
So the message gets out with that, because a lot of people will put bleach in hot water, and that doesn't work.
Yeah, good point, John. Thank you very much. I didn't know that about the hot water. I assume it to be true. It makes sense, makes perfect sense. Thank you very much for the call. We'll be back. I want to talk about, also broaden the subject out here to Bernie and Joe's debate coming up this weekend, and continue talking about the virus. And I got this weirdest little icon in the upper left-hand corner of my phone I want to ask you about.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
Hello, I'm Casey Hobbs.
And I'm Shane Mason, and we're the hosts of Nurse Talk Radio.
Here's what we're talking about this week.
Casey, our next guest lives to find stories and information that we usually don't find in the mainstream media. Donna Shaw is an investigative reporter for Tarbell. In the era of so-called fake news, it is critical to know and research our news sources. That's why Tarbell is expanding its excellent coverage and why it's supported by readers and not influenced by politics or corporate donations.
With us is Donna Shaw. Donna recently wrote about dangerous drug shortages that threaten patients in ERs, cancer clinics, and ambulances.
Donna, welcome to Nurse Talk, and thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
So it seems like a pretty big deal, Donna. So my first question is, why? Why is this happening?
Well, there are a number of whys, but I think mostly it boils down to economics. The Food and Drug Administration, a couple of months ago in November, held this day.
3 days to go. It's Wednesday, and we have a new premium.
And they had
and
all kinds
by the
of
way, thanks to the folks who stepped up yesterday, we as I said, we have $40,000 we have to raise by the end of this week, and we raised $7,000 yesterday. That was great. A lot of people called in and made $120 gifts to get either my book, The Hidden History of the War on Voting, or one of the 2 new T-shirts. And that was super. Thank you, if you're one of those folks who called in. And if you're not one of the folks who called in and made a contribution yesterday, please do so today. We have a new premium. It's Trump toilet paper. Suitable for blowing your nose on as well. It's that time of year, right? With a $30 contribution, and they'll throw in a bumper sticker as well. So that's is with $30, right? Do I have that right? Yes, $30. So with a $20 contribution, of course, there's the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or your car magnet. The car magnet is, kind of cool. It's one of these get out the vote things. I'm voting, are you? With a $30 contribution, you have the world famous Trump toilet paper. With a $50 contribution, it's the Just Effing Vote canvas tote bag. With a $75 contribution, the Thom Hartmann mug, the Tag You're It mug. With a $120 contribution, get an autographed copy of my book, The Hidden History of the War on Voting, or a Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt, or the Just Effing Vote t-shirt. Well, those are all $120 gifts. With a $240 gift, we can hang out together on the internet, and just a relatively small group of us will schedule, enough of these that they're never, that they're never large. They're always small enough that people can get together and be heard and ask questions and all that kind of thing. That's with the $240 gift. With a $300 gift, you've got the special Free Speech TV Get Out the Vote pack. There's a set of Free Speech TV host postcards that you can send to your friends and family. There is the car magnet to get out the vote. I'm voting, are you? There is the Just Effing Vote tote bag, and you get the autographed copy of The Hidden History of the War on Voting. With a $360 gift, you get the complete set, the Hidden History book set, The Hidden History of the Guns and the Second Amendment, my book about how the Second Amendment was passed to protect the slave patrols in the South, specifically in Georgia and Virginia and South Carolina, or the Carolinas, and how the gun industry basically conned or lobbied, let's say, the Supreme Court. I don't think Scalia was conned. I think he was a willing accomplice. But anyhow, that's the guns and the Second Amendment. Then also there's the Hidden History of the U.S. Supreme Court, the Betrayal of America, which talks about how the Supreme Court has betrayed us with regard to a whole variety of things. They've helped deconstruct unions. They've helped tear apart the middle class. The Supreme Court. They have empowered. They've empowered corruption throughout our political system by making it legal for billionaires and corporations to throw as much money at politicians as they want. All of these things, none of these things were done legislatively. In fact, in every case, they struck down legislation that protected union rights and protected worker rights and protected the middle class and protected, or kept money out of politics. And the Supreme Court knocked down all of these things. And the book is a damning indictment. And at the end, there is a way that Congress can actually get around the Supreme Court that was actually originally suggested during the Reagan administration by John Roberts, who's now the Chief Justice. So from the horse's mouth, as it were, I think it's one of the more important books I've written, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court. And of course, then finally, The Hidden History of the Republican War on Voting. And this goes through, how we got here, the Powell memo, how the Republicans basically reinvented themselves in the 70s and 80s after the Supreme Court decision, and how they fine-tuned voter suppression through the 80s and 90s, how it was used as a blunt instrument by George W. Bush and his brother Jeb in the 2000 election, how they, in the 2002, with the Help America Vote Act, how Republicans pushed through legislation that would kind of fine-tune the whole system so that they could easily and effectively suppress the vote. And then how they've been doing it ever since, and how it's showing up in this discrepancy between exit polls and actual polls. So with a $360 contribution, you get all three of those books, and they're all small, short, easily read books. And then with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and come visit us, once all this stuff settles down out there. But the bottom line is we need to keep Free Speech TV going. We need to keep this show on the air. We are way behind in our fundraising, and we need your help. We really do need your help. So please call now if you haven't already, 877-378-8669. We just have 3 days to go. Please call now. This program needs your help. This network needs your help. Please help us make it all happen and keep it going. 877-378-8669. Thank you. We've got a new video up for regular supporters of our program over at thomhartmann.com, and this is about
just a totally bizarre story about these three guys with no VA experience, not even veterans, who are all big shots down at Mar-a-Lago, that Donald Trump has put in charge of the Veterans Administration functionally. And their association, one of them is the head of Marvel Entertainment, their association with Johnson & Johnson and the New York Stock Exchange, and Johnson & Johnson, the big drug company, taking this very, very cheap chemical, ketamine, tweaking the molecule a little bit and rolling it out as a new anti-suicide drug, Spravato, that in clinical trials caused 6 people to die, 3 of them by suicide, and none of the people taking the placebo to die. And now Trump is telling the VA, you have to buy this highly inflated price drug from Johnson & Johnson, and the Democrats want to know what's up with the VA crowd guys. Check it out. It's possible actions to provoke, harass, disrupt Cuba. Some of the actions are pretty good, some are quite silly, and some are downright abhorrent. The book is Nuking the Moon. So it's Wednesday, and special new premium.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you live from my office here in my home in Portland, Oregon, and telecommuting here. The top story over at Raw Story: coronavirus funding held up by GOP around abortion. Republicans are holding up progress on legislation for coronavirus because of abortion. Bloomberg News reporter Eric Wasson reported that the Republican Party wants language about the Hyde Amendment. He tweeted, a key sticking point in the talks appears to be the Republican demand to include Hyde Amendment language in the bill to prevent federal funding from being used for abortion. We're going to appropriate money to help people and build out our medical infrastructure around the coronavirus, and we've got to add language to this that says, oh, and by the way, none of this can be used for abortion. And so, the Twitter sphere, oh, I see, saving fetuses over actual lives again. Now tell me, who's pro-life? Pressing women is always relevant to the GOP, always. And of course the GOP does this. They can pound sand, yeah, I would say, at the very least. So remember Rachel Bitkofer? She was on Bill Maher's show a couple weeks ago, and she, maybe a month or 3 ago, she published a piece in Politico that I found absolutely fascinating. I talked about it on this program. I shared it with you, in which she suggested that there's no such thing as a swing voter. Yeah, there are people who will from time to time vote. They'll seem, they have voted for Obama and then they voted for Trump. But they're not really swing voters. They have something very specific in mind that they're looking for. And in this election and in the last few elections, and particularly the 2016 election, her assertion was that the principal thing that people in America are voting for is change. They want the system to start working for the people instead of just for the fat cats. Now, back in 2014, a couple of researchers at Columbia and Northwestern universities, Martin Gillens and Benjamin Page, discovered that all the way back to around the late 90s, early 2000s, that if you looked at public opinion surveys about what the bottom 90% of Americans wanted to have happen legislatively, and compared that with the actual legislation that passed, there was no relationship between the two. Somewhere in the late 80s, early 90s, or maybe even the late 90s, but they didn't go back and quantify the exact start point. But certainly for the last 20 years, the legislation that gets passed through Congress does not reflect the desires of the vast majority of Americans. Instead, what it does reflect are the desires of the top 1%. Their interests, their social interests, their political interests, their economic interests are consistently made into law. But the interests of the bottom The bottom 90% of us, no. Which you could argue means we're literally no longer a democratic republic, because in a democracy, I mean, the whole definition of democracy, a functional definition, is that what the people want is what the government does. That's why you have, we the people, the first three words of the preamble of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, as I recall. And so, this is what a democracy is, and it's not us anymore. And people know this. People, they know it intuitively. They know it at a gut level. It's why when Donald Trump got up in 2015 and he said, the system is rigged, it's not working for you anymore. He says, make me president, and I'm going to raise the taxes on these rich people and lower the taxes on working class people. He says, I'm going to take such a hit, I'm going to take such a bath, I'm going to be hurt so bad, but it's the right thing to do for my country. Remember that? And he got up on that stage and he said, I'm the only person on this entire stage, all these other Republicans, I'm the only one who will not cut Social Security and Medicare. Of course, he has proposed cutting it in every single one of his budgets, and he's cut the staff for both agencies in every single year, he and the Republicans. I mean, he was lying through his teeth in all of this stuff. He said, I'm the guy who's going to bring your jobs back home from China. Wrong, actually. There's been more outsourcing since he's become president. He had some tariffs, and they interrupted a few things, but short term. And in fact, now, I just got an email from a pharmacy that I've used over the years, an online pharmacy, and actually a Canadian pharmacy. And they say that in their email, they point out that all the drugs and all the raw materials for the drugs, not all, but the vast majority of the drugs sold in North America, in the United States and Canada, are actually made in China. A lot of the pills are pressed in India, but the raw ingredients are all coming out of China, and the supply chain disruptions associated with the virus out of China and hoarding is not the word that they use. What they said is, there are export limits because China wants drugs to be available for its own population first and foremost, represent the possibility of shortages, particularly with important pharmaceuticals. So, this is a month ago, 2 months ago, I was saying, get a 90-day supply of whatever you take, if it's important to you. So, but anyway, back to what people vote for. So Rachel Bitkofer was saying, basically, people want change. They want the country to work for them again. Well, what is that? That's basically a populist message. And that's what Trump ran on. And it's part of why he's in the White House. I mean, the biggest part of why he's in the White House is he had a little bit of help from some billionaire oligarchs in foreign countries, Saudi Arabia and Russia apparently at the top of the list, and that he lied through his teeth, and he had the Republican parties in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio engaging in massive voter suppression, throwing hundreds of thousands of people in every single one of those states, mostly black people in urban areas, off the voting rolls. And we just saw this week, where the mayor of Kansas City, who's black, showed up to vote, where he's voted for every year for every last 10 elections, voted for himself 4 times, and he wasn't on the voting rolls anymore. Missouri took him off the rolls. Well, they got a good Republican Secretary of State. So anyway, this is why the Republicans do this, but the bottom line, she was saying, this is what people want. And so there's this really interesting conversation with her that it's popping up in a bunch of different sites. And I'm sorry, I don't have my normal printer here, so I wasn't able to print the whole article out. It wouldn't print right, so I just took a piece of it. So I can't tell you where this came from, but you should be able to find it fairly easily with a search on her name. Bitcofer, I believe it is. Actually, I can tell you. It is Bitcofer, Rachel, Rachel. Anyhow, what she says is that many voters, especially those independents and swing voters, are very susceptible to negative campaigns. Bernie has a weakness in that regard because he's going to be supported by a party that is inept at messaging. Well, that's going to be the case whether it's Bernie or Joe, right? And then she goes on to say, those who oppose Bernie Sanders and think he could doom the party are overlooking how Bernie Sanders is the one presidential candidate primary candidate who can negate Donald Trump's populist advantage in terms of messaging. It is probably a major disadvantage to go into the general election with a Washington establishment candidate such as Joe Biden. This is Rachel Bitcover. Obama to Trump voters are going to support Trump in that contest with Biden. It's an almost automatic for them. But if the Democrats go into Bernie Sanders, they have a real opportunity to win those voters in the election because of the populist messaging possibilities. Now, this just came out today. So, I don't know, where were you a few weeks ago, Rachel? It's fascinating stuff. So the debate has been moved to Washington, D.C. so that Bernie and Joe don't need to get on airplanes to go to Arizona. There's not going to be a studio audience anyway. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
So we're talking politics, we're talking coronavirus, we're talking the incompetence of the Trump administration. We'll start talking about the economy, too, as we continue. And welcome back. Amazing. Karen in Friday Harbor, Washington. Hey, Karen, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I've been a long-time listener from the beginning, and I just had a thought that in my mind, I've been a long-time activist for medical marijuana, and thinking back, there was a Science News article in July 16th, 2010, that spoke of marijuana being protective against cancer. Smoking marijuana would be protective against lung cancer. And I was
right,
thinking,
and specifically what caused them to think that was that when they look at long-term cigarette smokers, they find high rates of lung cancer, and when they look at long-term marijuana smokers, they find rates of lung cancer that are identical to, or even in some cases lower than, people who don't smoke at all.
Oh, well, I was just thinking that maybe it had a protective effect against the coronavirus, but...
Oh, no, coronavirus and cancer are completely different things, first of all. Secondly, and you know, I mentioned this to Lise a couple days ago, I think it's really dangerous for any of us to be speculating on the air about what might help the coronavirus. I understand where you're coming from, Karen, and you know, I respect it, but I don't want somebody to think that they can magically be safe if they smoke pot, or if they squeeze their big toe, or if they take a lot of vitamin C, and then go out in public and do things that are going to get themselves infected. There may well be, and we'll probably know a few years down the road. I mean, we know now, you know, if you have the flu or the common cold, it seems that a little honey and lemon juice helps out. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know if there's been good science on it, but we're talking about something here that has not just a 1 to 2, maybe 3% mortality rate, 6% in the United States, which is nonsense because we haven't been testing, but more importantly, has a high morbidity rate. That is to say, 10 to 20% of the people who get this disease end up really, really, really hospitalized level sick, and that's the thing that people are worried about in terms of the medical professionals. The ones that I've talked to, the articles that I've read, what people are concerned about is that it's not going to be the bodies stacked up in the streets like the bubonic plague. It's or even the flu pandemic of 1919. Although we may get to that because this is deadly on that kind of level. But long before that, it's going to be the hospitals saying to people who think that they're about to have a heart attack, no, you can't come in here. This hospital is dealing exclusively with coronavirus. Or people who have cancer saying, no, I'm sorry, we can't schedule your chemotherapy now because the hospital's shut down. This is the real crisis, and that's why we have to take this stuff so seriously. Bill in Lake Elsinore, California. Hey, Bill, you got just a minute here until the break if I'm reading my clock.
Okay, good morning, Tom. I was just wondering, PVC or nitrile exam gloves, you could buy 100 for $10. They seem to work, or what's your take on that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And we had this guy call earlier who works in restaurants, and he says he always wears those nitrile gloves. I bought a box of them for our office, for Sean and Nate and me and Lise and Joyce. If they want to wear them, they're sitting there. It's not a bad thing to have. Bill, thanks for the call. We'll be right back. Our 1-hour free podcast recaps our show, and it's available wherever fine podcasts are found. And we have the full 3-hour podcast available over at thomhartmann.com if you want to really support our program. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Jerry in D-Land, Florida. Hey, Jerry, you wanted to correct what might be misinformation. This is one of the problems with people calling up and saying, here's what I know, and they haven't checked it, and I haven't checked it. Anyhow, Jerry, you're on the air.
Yeah. I'm a professional custodian. Have taken classes on disinfecting with bleach. The capsule he's talking about is for disinfecting a gallon of water for drinking. You let it sit for 12 to 24 hours, and you can drink it. If you want to,
so that's like if you have a gallon of river water and you want to disinfect it, you put a cap full of bleach.
I wouldn't go that far, but anyway,
in an emergency.
Bodily fluids is 10%. No matter what the amount of water is, 10% of bleach will disinfect blood, saliva, the fecal matter, things of that nature. I'm also on the Department of Energy website. Have you read the Department of Energy website, the Corona Hub's first paragraph?
No.
It's the Coronavirus Hub. It says this: the Trump administration has taken action to aggressively prepare for any coronavirus development, including requesting new funding and authorities from Congress. Because of the decisive action taken early on by President Trump, the risk of infection for Americans remains low, and precious time has been gained to implement a whole-of-government response. Thank you, Department of Energy.
Yeah, I got an email this morning from Trump, one of his fundraising emails, and it said, go check out our website on the coronavirus. I'm guessing it linked to that page that you're telling me about.
Yeah, it's on the Department of Energy.
We are so screwed. This is amazing. Anyhow, thank you.
Good health to you and your family, sir.
Yeah, good health to you and your family too, Jerry. Thank you. Michael in Denver. Hey, Michael, what's on your mind today?
Yes, good morning, Tom. Well, Tom, reason I called is because I'm doing daily checks and all. First of all, my wife's a visiting nurse. She works for the Visiting Nurse Association of America. And they are up to their nostrils right now with alligators, crocodiles of all types because of the population that they have to deal with, hospice, and then also home care and all. And, I mean, the lack of, because we're not prepared, whatever. However, the market forces, that don't look at things, like gloves and masks. They're there. They're not that important. But when a crisis comes, then they become, basically of the utmost importance. And I have a son that's in New York right now. He works there. He's going to school there, and he lives in Jersey City. So tomorrow is his day for possibly, hopefully, getting tested. He just came back from the Philippines, 3 weeks in the Philippines, and he voluntarily quarantined because he had a sore throat, some sniffles, and all. But the thing is that to test, first of all, the state of New Jersey doesn't have enough test kits, and all. It could take up to 2 to 3 weeks. And then the only other place that he might be able to do it tomorrow is at the University Health Clinic where he goes to school. But he has to travel on 2 subways and a bus to get there. And, where are we? I mean, the public is planning the best that it can, and we got to take our hats off to everybody. The guy that just called up with valuable information. Folks, the WHO has a great website. And Tom, before and you can ask me anything, but I hope you've had, and I know you've spoken to in the past, the NNU. My wife's a member of the National Nurses Union, and man, they are doing some amazing work getting the word out. So I hope you have one of their people come on. hopefully, this week or next week.
Oh, we have them on. Say that again, Sean. Sean just said in my ear, "I am booking one as we speak."
Absolutely magnificent, Tom. Absolutely,
Michael. Yeah, we've got
and also you getting the word out. Please be safe out there and everything. Yeah. But thank you, man, because I've been listening to you for years. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm trying to walk this very delicate line between making people hysterical and having people be complacent. I mean, complacency will kill us. Hysteria can kill us too. And probably even using the word kill, except that we're dealing with something that actually is life and death. And, the city of Portland, where I live, just declared the mayor just declared a state of emergency here in Portland. Now, I don't know what that means. It just happened while I was on the air. I haven't had an opportunity to carefully read any of the news stories about it. I don't know if that means he's shutting down the schools. But if I had a kid in the public school system right now, I'd be taking them out of school, at least for a week or so, at least until they can get some test kits into these schools. We had a school just down the road, Lake Oswego, which is where one of my kids lives, who has 2 kids in the school system, where one of the people working in the school, and they still haven't released the person's name, so we don't know if it was a teacher or a coach or a janitor or a security guard, but one of the people working in the school tested positive for coronavirus and got real sick. And, so they closed the schools for a while. I think this is coming. I think Norway's looking, and Denmark, they're looking at what is going on in Italy right now and what happened in China a while ago, or at least in Wuhan and Hubei province, and they're saying, it ain't going to happen here. We're going to slow this thing down right now. And they just declared the only stores that can be open are grocery stores and pharmacies. And if you have a restaurant, you have to be able to guarantee 3 feet of separation between everybody in that restaurant, and no buffets, and that's it. And then there's all these cleaning protocols and things that people have to do. You've got restaurants. I mentioned this restaurant in California that's taking people's temperatures at the door. And our life is changing. Our life is going to change. It is changing. I'm telecommuting now. Nate may well be our video guy soon. We are trying to figure out how to get Sean to be able to telecommute step by step here. But life is changing, and it's being made far worse by the incompetence of the Trump administration.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And the stock market, the investors, they are not, listening to Trump last night, they're puking. They're saying, no way, get me out of here. Special match. This is just spectacular. An opportunity to really, really, really supercharge our fundraising, because we're still about $30,000 behind, and for Free Speech TV, and we really need your help. We do, the network does, the whole shooting match. And Vincent in Florida, Sam in Massachusetts, Mac in Colorado, and Steve in New York have tossed together some cash. And so your contributions today will be matched up to $10,000. So whatever you give today will be doubled. So it is a great day. If you have not yet made a contribution to Free Speech TV, if you have not yet joined our family, essentially, and become part of this great little television network that is bringing truth into your home every single day, today is your chance to do so with a punch. And this will be the last one. Tomorrow will be the last day of the pledge, but this is the only match that's coming, to the best of my knowledge, this week. So please call now. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. 877-378-8669. With a $20 gift, you get your choice of the car magnet to help get out the vote. I'm voting, are you? Or the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. These bumper stickers were made for us years ago, actually, by a guy who's a regular listener to the program. He was listening on the radio. This is probably 8-9 years ago. And they have just been so popular. He sent us a couple of boxes of them over the years, just kind of gifts them to us. And
I sent a box of them to Free Speech TV, and they were like, "Oh, these are really great. We should give these away with a $20 gift." And it says proud student at Thom Hartmann University, and we like them, and we thank Caleb, the guy who put them together and sent them to us. So anyhow, that's with a $20 gift. With a with a $30 gift, lest we forget, there's the Trump toilet paper, and I just have to tell you this Trump toilet paper is it's so cool. If you know that friends of like mind are coming to visit you, and for a while here, these may be less frequent, right, as we live in the era of mass pandemics. But nonetheless, if you have some friends coming over or family members, and they, and they go use the bathroom, and before they come over, you put the Trump toilet paper in the roll, then it can produce hysteria. One of our kids came over one day, and with her family, and we had put the Trump toilet paper in the guest bathroom, and she came out laughing so hard I thought she was going to fall on the floor. $30 Trump toilet paper. With a $50 gift, you get the Just Effing Vote canvas tote bag. Canvas tote bags are always good, and Just Effing Vote is always a good message. With a $75 gift, you get the Tag You're It Thom Hartmann mug to drink your coffee with in the morning. With a $120 gift, you get a variety of things that you can choose from. There's the Hidden History of the War on Voting, the Republican War on Voting, that book, which tells the story of how the GOP, once they decided, hey, that they were never going to do anything for average working people in the United States. They were just all in with the billionaires and the big polluting corporations. They had the 1% vote, but how did they get the 99% vote? And through the Reagan era and all this, they tried just BSing us basically, and it sort of worked for a while. And then people figured it out, just like they're figuring it out with Trump right now. And so what did they do? They moved over into voter suppression, to prevent people from voting. Or if they do vote, give them provisional ballots and don't count their votes. And this strategy over the last 20 years, since the 2000 election, when it was tried fairly clumsily by George W. Bush and his brother Jeb Bush, has been super fine-tuned. And this book lays it out in a small and easily read format. This is the Supreme Court book, but it's this size. It's like 180 pages. So anyway, that's with a $120 gift, or you can get one of two T-shirts. One of them is Just Effing Vote, and the other is Ask Me About Free Speech TV, which is a fine thing. With a $240 gift, we can get together on Skype or Zoom or whatever they ultimately decide to use, and hang out and have a conversation. That's our virtual meet and greet. That's with a $240 gift. With a $300 gift, there's the official Free Speech TV Get Out the Vote pack, which includes the Free Speech TV host postcards to send to friends and family to tell them about Free Speech TV and the various shows. There is the car magnet that you saw earlier. There's the Just Effing Vote tote bag, and my book, The Hidden History of the War on Voting. And all these books, all of my books, actually they're the only books we're offering right now, are autographed by the author. They're signed by me. With a $360 gift, there is a 3-book set, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court, The Hidden History of the War on Voting, and The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, all 3 autographed by the author. The gun book tells about how basically the racist history of the Second Amendment, and the Supreme Court book about how we've been screwed by the Supreme Court. And with a $1,000 gift, there's the meet and greet, come to Portland and hang out with us when things settle down. But the bottom line is we really need your help, and we need it now, and it will be doubled. 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Coming up on the Science Revolution this week, first, Trump is using the same logic on COVID-19 that he used for pesticides and pollution. And I'll explain why that's not a good thing. Nilay Marian, Forestry and Biodiversity Framework Coordinator with Friends of the Earth International, is here. Can we stop mass extinctions? Eva Hamer, Legal Coordinator of Direct Action Everywhere, drops by on her article, Why I Went Topless at Costco. Plus, geeky science. This is what happens when public transit is free. But wait, there's more. Tune in to the Science Revolution wherever fine podcasts are found. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, broadcasting live from home today, and probably for a little while. Kenyatta in Los Angeles. Hey, Kenyatta, what's on your mind today?
Hi there, Mr. Hartmann. How are you?
So far, so good. I hope the same is true for you.
Well, I am an SLE, systemic lupus patient, and I'm approaching my mid-50s. And I've got a daughter, as I've spoken with you before, that's in private university, so class sizes are small, but she also, like a lot of college students, works in a restaurant. So it's a little anxious around here.
Yeah, I can imagine.
What I wanted to talk about is what Frantz Fanon called the wretched of the earth. And as you know, Tom, 15% roughly of the population in the United States is black or African American or Negro or whatever we're called today. But ironically, the one place in this country where we are a majority is in prison. And prisons are petri dishes for this type of thing. Now, you don't have prisoners probably getting on planes and going to Asia or different parts of the world, but you do have people that they interact with that do. These are people that are already marginalized, just as they are in the society at large when they're not in prison. And just as you have been so outspoken on the outcomes for black people in this country, routinely are very difficult. Same situation, same condition, same illness, worse than any other group. I'm really concerned about these folks, and with everyone kind of in this kind of anxious state, I don't want to forget about these people because, frankly, that's what I'm all about, speaking for people who no one speaks for. And if you've ever had experience in a prison or a jail, these are people that are subject to incredible abuse. And that certainly would go to the medical area. I finally want to say, and what really brought this to my attention is here in California, the governor has suspended for an unknown period of time visits to prison. And one of the things that prison guards do is they notice who gets visits, who gets mail, who doesn't, and it's those prisoners who don't get visits and don't get mail that are generally more subject to abuse. I mean, I know it's a tough subject. But I'm really worried about these folks, and I kind of just wanted to hear your thoughts on that because I haven't really heard anyone speak on it.
Yeah. All good points, Kenyatta. And I would add that the prison medical systems are not equipped to deal with large-scale serious illness. I mean, they hit congestion levels during flu season, but when you've got a disease where 10, 15, 20% of the people who get that disease need hospitalization, as is the case with this coronavirus, there's not a prison in America that's ready for this. And it may not be brought in by visitors.
And how do they get transported? And how do they get transported to those hospitals? They have to all get on buses?
Right. Well, and not only that, I mean, what hospital is going to take them?
Exactly.
The entire system
already
is all
marginalized.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And so
go ahead. I'm sorry, Tom.
Yeah, no, thank you. So I think that, and the other point I was going to make is that I think that if this coronavirus starts popping up in our jails, and I think it's just a matter of time, and yes, I've been in jail. I spent 10 days, which is not a whole lot, but 10 days in jail back in the 60s when I got busted for being in the SDS and protesting and stuff. But and that was just a county jail, but that was a real, crap hole. It was, and I can't imagine what it would be like in prison. I've seen the movies, but I would not want to go. And so, we need to start reducing our prison population real systematically, really rapidly, because it's going to overwhelm the prison system. Because it's going to be brought in by the guards. I mean, the guards have families and they've got kids that are going to public schools, and the public schools are going to be one of the principal vectors of this, I predict. They certainly were in China, and they were in Italy, and from what we're hearing. And and boom, there you go. So number one. Number two, we need to, and I think New York State has already done this, or maybe it's just like New York City, because they can't make bail. And now is a good time to start.
Governor Newsom issued this proclamation or mandate recently. I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was last year.
One way to somewhat ameliorate that might be to expand the ability of people in jail to have access to things like Zoom and Skype. The problem is that the phone, as the phone systems in jail is a giant. They'll probably figure out a way to screw the prisoners on Skype or Zoom, but I'm with you. Kenyatta, got to move along, but thank you for the call. Always thoughtful. Paul in Glenside, Pennsylvania. Hey, Paul, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I wanted to talk about the stress level and the anxiety level from what's going on with the spread of the virus and the failure, and also some of the forces of government on more on the local level to respond to it. I think that certainly we feel a sense of helplessness in the face of the complete incompetence of the government on the national level to do anything at all. But here in Glenside, which is in the Philadelphia region, there's been a lot of very proactive response. Many of the college campuses are closing down. Philadelphia has an Ivy League school, Penn. I mean, they're going to completely no more classrooms. Sporting events, I mean, you might have heard, everyone's probably heard now, the NBA has suspended their season. I think we're going to see in very rapid succession the people of the United States will take control of this country in a way, not in a governmental way, not in a coup-like way, but take control of our lives on the day-to-day basis of transactions in a way that the government is quite frankly afraid to do, even if we had Pericles in charge of America, because of the individualistic streak in most Americans. Right now,
I don't think it's that so much, Paul. If you look at the planning that Obama did for if Ebola got out loose in America, and back in 2009, the planning that the Obama administration did, and Ron Klein has talked about this at length on a number of programs, that they did back in 2009 around swine flu. Thinking, or the H1N1 flu, whatever, bird flu, whatever it was, thinking that was going to be a very, very deadly flu that might be on par with the 1919 flu pandemic. Turns out it wasn't. In fact, it was less deadly than normal seasonal flu. But, if you look at the planning they did, it was extensive, it was in depth, it was collaborative with the states. The Trump administration has shut down all those offices. They did that 2 years ago to, quote, save money. And so that they could have more money to give tax cuts to billionaires. I mean, this is a very different thing. And we've all lived through 9/11, and we've been through crises in the Cuban Missile Crisis and everything else. But that was all out there stuff. 3,000 people in New York died. That was a crisis. It changed the face of America. But it wasn't in here in my house. It wasn't my next door neighbor. And when our hospitals, when you've got a disease where your morbidity rate, not mortality, not the death rate, but the people getting so sick that they need hospitalization. With the flu, it's 1%, something like it's very, very low. Just like it's 1/10 of 1% people die, and it's an identifiable population, people in nursing homes and things. But with this, you're going to have 10-15% of these people infected with this are going to need a hospital bed, and we only have 150,000 generally available hospital beds nationwide. We've lost 500,000 hospital beds in the last 15 years through hospital consolidation, as these giant monopolies are forming, and in rural areas because these red states won't take Medicaid.
Even if we had the biggest hospital system in the world, we still wouldn't have millions of beds. What I'm saying is it's going to be bad. However, we're going to come through this. Not everyone's going to be alive. I mean, I'm 63. I have a heart condition. Maybe I'll make it. Maybe I won't. I don't know. I'm not leaving my apartment. I have a lot of hand sanitizer. I have bleach. I eat organic foods. I mean, I don't intend to just roll over and die. What I'm saying
I get
is,
it, Paul. No, you're trying to just ramp it down. I get it. Thank you very much.
Listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And that is that delicate balance, and Paul speaks to it very eloquently, between panic or despair, for that matter, and complacency. And welcome back. Dave in Ocean View, Hawaii. Hey, Dave, how's Hawaii dealing with all this?
How you doing today, Tom?
Good. How's Hawaii dealing with the coronavirus? I hear you have at least one case on one of the islands there.
Well, they say there's two. Controversy, over one way or the other. We're so remote. It's hard to say really here how the coronavirus handle is. I'm an artist. I deal my stuff at flea markets and fairs. I wear gloves, face mask. I got to shake hands, interchange with money. It's pretty yucky. I'm not real happy about it, but what do? You just do your best and move along. But one of the questions is why yesterday at the press conference with the president, why doesn't a reporter stand up and go, Mr. President, why are you lying to us? Why doesn't somebody do that?
There was a reporter who did that, and I think it might have been Kristen Welker, although I could be completely wrong. But there was a reporter who did that about a year ago, and she got permanently banned from the White House. So that's why.
Free Speech TV should hire her.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, really.
But she's not going to get back into the White House.
Standing up and doing this, are they that afraid?
Jim Acosta is right at the edge of it. Jim Acosta, day before yesterday in the White House, confronted Trump on one of his lies. He didn't use the word lie, but he said words to the effect of, "Sir, what you're saying is simply not true." And Trump threw a hissy fit and ended the meeting and refused to answer his question.
Then we should be throwing more hissy fits. More people need to stand up to the president, personally stand up to the president.
Yeah,
it's terrible. And I have
no
just
disagreement here.
Quickies. Yeah, I'm a first-time voter. I registered the first time to vote in my entire life. I'm 62. Never voted since high school at the prom date. This is so important for people to understand what's going to happen to us. And nobody seems to really care.
Well, I think
it really seems out there. You talk to people, there's a lot of people that are mad. And there's a lot more people that are just, I'm so fed up, I just can't do anything. They're afraid.
And it's not going to be any easier if we're in the middle of a coronavirus epidemic in the United States,
where, how much harder do we
where
need
people
to
are
make
afraid
this?
to go to vote. And this is why Ron Wyden has introduced legislation to give all the states a couple $100 million to, I think it was $400 million to all the states so that they can start running the printing presses right now so that every state can send a vote by mail ballot to every registered voter in every state for the November election. And if we start planning for it right now, we can do it.
We need to. We need to do something. The American people are in such dire straits right now that they don't understand.
Yeah, I'm with you. Dave, thanks for the call, and thanks for watching Free Speech all the way out there in Hawaii. It's great to hear from you. Thank you. We'll be right back. Hey, did you know that Hillary Clinton actually won Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Florida in the 2016 election? It's on page 92 of my new book, The Hidden History of the War on Voting. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you live from my home office in Portland, Oregon. Senator Patty Murray is trying to speed emergency paid sick leave legislation. Now, this is very simple and very focused, right? Earlier, I said that the coronavirus stuff, the money for hospitals and things like that, the Republicans in the Senate are blocking because they want language that anti-abortion language written into the bill. But this is just sick leave, right? This is not medical stuff, and so they're not freaking out. The Republicans aren't throwing abortion hissy fits on it. Instead, this Senator Patty Murray tried to speed the progress of the emergency paid sick leave bill. This is so that the restaurant that you go to, if you're still going to restaurants, the person who's making your food and serving your food, or the Grubhub or Uber or whatever it may, delivery driver who's bringing the food to you, who doesn't have paid days off, paid sick days, or the Amazon delivery person who may not have paid sick days. I frankly don't know about that, but I know that they contract with a lot of secondary parties that definitely don't. That those people aren't working sick, spreading disease, and they won't be destroyed. Won't end up homeless if they have to take a month off work to get sick and get over getting sick. So Senator Patty Murray is trying to get this emergency paid sick leave bill to a full vote in the Senate. And Republican Senator Lamar Alexander blocked it. He did a procedural maneuver that stuck the bill in the Senate Health Committee. And this is nuts. This Daily Kos piece by Laura Clausen notes Senate Democrats are not going to quit trying to pass paid sick leave, and House Democrats are going to pass it this week through the House of Representatives. Meanwhile, Ron Wyden is looking at a coming election disaster. I mean, what happens if people are afraid to go to the polls? Now, in Washington State, in Oregon, and there's 2 other states, and I didn't realize this. 3 other states, Colorado, Hawaii, and Utah, all entirely vote by mail. But what Ron Wyden has introduced legislation in the Senate to appropriate $500 million. That's like, 30 seconds of the federal budget, $500 million of federal funding to give to the states so that so every state can mail in ballots for the November election to everybody in their state who's a registered voter. So that people won't have to stand in line and they won't have to touch surfaces like on touchscreen machines that have been touched by hundreds of people before them. The upside, this may be the death of the touchscreen voting machine, by the way. But Wyden says no voter choose between exercising their constitutional right and putting their health at risk. And so he wants to provide every voter with a paper ballot that can either return by mail or drop off at a drop-off point. So, yeah, just a little bit of stuff here. Jocelyn in Tacoma, Washington. Hey, Jocelyn, what's up?
Hi. So I'm actually home. I am a middle school student who my mom took me out of school due to coronavirus because there's been an outbreak in Washington. And
she's wise.
Yeah. And we are very worried about everything that's going on here because we have had a lot of cases going on through this whole Washington state. So, yeah.
So you just wanted to give us a flag that you're a student and is your school closed or did your mom just pull you out?
No, my school should be closed, I think, at least, because I'm around an area that has had cases, and schools have closed, multiple schools near me.
Yeah. I'm with you. Well, Jocelyn, thanks for calling in and thanks for sharing your story with us, and I wish you the very best and stay safe, okay?
Okay.
Okay, thanks a lot. Great to hear from you. Norma in Montgomery, Alabama. Hey, Norma, what's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. Well, here in Alabama, we don't have a case yet. What we have is sinus infections because everything's in full bloom. So if I cough, I'm not sick.
Okay.
But,
At least that you know. I don't know how many test kits Alabama has.
oh, there are none here.
10?
Remember, we had a governor named Bentley he never expanded Medicaid because he was protecting us from Obama. And since then, we've had 9 outbreaks of tuberculosis. We had a serious outbreak of hepatitis A. We have 3 small hospitals here in this town. But UAB, I don't know how Birmingham would handle, the mess. It's the largest city. But as a disabled person, I have always faced problems of taking care of myself. And for those of you who are worried about how you're going to manage, one of the things you can do is go ahead and start cooking. I always use my turkey roaster. It's not a once-a-year deal, people. Grab the thing, stuff it full of chickens because you eat protein, throw in potatoes, carrots, and onions, cook it, divide the meat, put it in the freezer, and you can make TV dinners to take to your elders and hand it to them through the door so you don't contaminate them. You can, cook ahead. When I go to the store, I only eat organic. I always cook the whole bag of rice. I cook every box of pasta I buy. I divide it up. I freeze it. I stack it. And because I have to eat the protein for my cardiac meds, it's a protein-bound drug, I eat the chicken. And so I can take the chicken meat, throw it in a wok, add some frozen rice, add some soy sauce, some honey, add vegetables. I have Chinese. I can take out a package and throw in barbecue sauce, and I have barbecue sandwiches. I can make chicken salad sandwiches. And that lasts me for quite a while because I'm a single person here. But, not being able to know when I will be able to stand up each day. I have multiple problems. I have downward nystagmus, hand problems, eye problems. I plan ahead. And if you do this, you can make it, folks.
There you go. Norma, thank you. Thanks for sharing your story with us. And yeah, these are actually hopeful stories. These are not the kind of things that scare the hell out of people. This is, yes, we can pull through this. And we will. It's going to be tough, but we will pull through this. Norma, thank you. Thank you so much. We will be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
Special match. This is just spectacular. An opportunity to really, really, really supercharge our fundraising because we're still about $30,000 behind and for Free Speech TV, and we really need your help. We do, the network does, the whole shooting match. And Vincent in Florida, Sam in Massachusetts, Mac in Colorado, and Steve in New York have tossed together some cash. And so your contributions today will be matched up to $10,000. So whatever you give today will be doubled. So it is a great day. If you have not yet made a contribution to Free Speech TV, if you have not yet joined our family, essentially, and become part of this great little television network that is bringing truth into your home every single day, today is your chance to do so with a punch. And this will be the last one. Tomorrow will be the last day of the pledge, but this is the only match that's coming, to the best of my knowledge, this week. So please call now. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. 877-378-8669. With a $20 gift, you get your choice of the car magnet to help get out the vote. I'm voting, are you? Or the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. These bumper stickers were made for us
years ago, actually, by a guy who's a regular listener to the program. He was listening on the radio. This is probably 8, 9 years ago. And they have just been so popular. You know, he sent us a couple of boxes of them over the years, just kind of gifts them to us. And I sent a box of them to Free Speech TV, and they were like, oh, these are really great. We should give these away with a $20 gift. And it says, proud student at Thom Hartmann University, you know. And, you know, we like them. And we thank Caleb, the guy who put them together and sent them to us. So anyhow, that's with a $20 gift. With a $50, well, with a $30 gift, lest we forget, there's the Trump toilet paper. And I just have to tell you, this Trump toilet paper is just, it's so cool. If you know that friends of like mind are coming to visit you, and for a while here, these may be less frequent, right, as we live in the era of massive pandemics. But nonetheless, if you have some friends coming over or family members, and they, and they go use the bathroom, and before they come over, you put the Trump toilet paper in the roll, then it can produce hysteria. One of our kids came over one day, and with her family, and we had put the Trump toilet paper in the guest bathroom, and she came out laughing so hard I thought she was going to fall on the floor. $30 Trump toilet paper. With a $50 gift, you get the Just Effing Vote canvas tote bag. Canvas tote bags are always good, and Just Effing Vote is always a good message. With a $75 gift, you get the Tag You're It Thom Hartmann mug to drink your coffee with in the morning. With a $120 gift, you get a variety of things that you can choose from. There's the Hidden History of the War on Voting, the Republican War on Voting, that book, which tells the story of how the GOP, once they decided, hey, that they were never going to do anything for average working people in the United States. They were just all in with the billionaires and the big polluting corporations. They had the 1% vote, but how did they get the 99% vote? And through the Reagan era and all this, they tried just BSing us, basically, and it sort of worked for a while. And then people figured it out, just like they're figuring it out with Trump right now. And so what did they do? They moved over into voter suppression, to prevent people from voting. Or if they do vote, give them provisional ballots and don't count their votes. And this strategy over the last 20 years, since the 2000 election, when it was tried fairly clumsily by George W. Bush and his brother Jeb Bush, has been super fine-tuned. And this book lays it out in a small and easily read format. This is the Supreme Court book, but it's this size. It's like 180 pages. So anyway, that's with a $120 gift, or you can get one of two T-shirts. The one of them is the Just Effing Vote, and the other is Ask Me About Free Speech TV, which is a fine thing. With a $240 gift, we can get together on Skype or Zoom or whatever they ultimately decide to use, and hang out and have a conversation. That's our virtual meet and greet. That's with a $240 gift. With a $300 gift, there's the official Free Speech TV Get Out the Vote pack, which includes the Free Speech TV host postcards to send to friends and family to tell them about Free Speech TV and the various shows. There is the car magnet that you saw earlier. There's the Just Effing Vote tote bag, and my book, The Hidden History of the War on Voting. And all these books, all of my books, actually they're the only books we're offering right now, are autographed by the author. They're signed by me. With a $306 gift, there is a 3-book set, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court, The Hidden History of the War on Voting, and The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, all 3 autographed by the author. The gun book tells about how basically the racist history of the Second Amendment, and the Supreme Court book about how we've been screwed by the Supreme Court. And with a $1,000 gift, there's the meet and greet, come to Portland and hang out with us when things settle down. But the bottom line is we really need your help, and we need it now, and it will be doubled. 877-378-8669. Thank you. We've got a new video up for regular supporters of our program over at ThomHartmann.com, and this is about just a totally bizarre story about these 3 guys with no VA experience, not even veterans, who are all big shots down at Mar-a-Lago.
that Donald Trump has put in charge of the Veterans Administration functionally. And their association, one of them is the head of Marvel Entertainment, their association with Johnson & Johnson and the New York Stock Exchange, and Johnson & Johnson, the big drug company, taking this very, very cheap chemical, ketamine, tweaking the molecule a little bit, and rolling it out as a new anti-suicide drug, Spravato, that in clinical trials caused 6 people to die, 3 of them by suicide, and none of the people taking the placebo to die. And now Trump is telling the VA, you have to buy this highly inflated price drug from Johnson & Johnson, and the Democrats want to know what's up with the VA crowd guys. Check it out. It's by Hennessy and Wicks.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and we have been talking about the first hour. Mostly, we were talking about the virus. I tried to bring up some conversation about the election coming up. Well, I think pretty much everybody's in waiting mode. We'll see what happens on Sunday when Bernie and Joe Biden have their sit down together without an audience. And what's going to be particularly fascinating about that is I think this is probably going to be Bernie's last chance to really push through, to break through. There are some people out there saying, oh, he's already beyond the number of votes. Looking at that math, I don't see it that way. I think he still has a good chance, or at least a chance. And if he does really well in that debate, and a lot of people watch that debate, and it's funny, I look on the, there's some message boards that lean toward Joe, and there are some that lean toward Bernie. And the ones that lean toward Joe are saying, oh, yeah, I don't want to watch the debate. I'm not going to watch it, you. And the ones that are leaning toward Bernie are like, everything depends on this. Well, to a certain extent, it probably does. So there's that. I mentioned that. I also wanted to talk about the economics of all this. What happens economically? I wrote a book about this back in 2000, 8, 9, something like that. It was around that time, and it was called The Crash of 2016. Now, I had suggested to the publisher it should be called The Great Crash or Why Crashes Happen, but they thought it would sell more books if it said The Crash of 2016, because I think it came out in 2012, as I recall. And it did sell pretty well, but it's out of print now because 2016 is long behind us. But in that book, I laid out what would happen to the American economy if there was a black swan event. It was one of the 3 principal scenarios that I laid out in the end of the book as things that could precipitate the Great Crash. And I believe that that's what we're seeing right now, right in front of us. And that it's this virus, and it is interrupting supply chains. You've got car manufacturers in the United States that are having to shut down parts of their assembly lines because they can't get parts from China. You've got pharmaceutical supply chains. I shared with you earlier, I got an email from a pharmacy, an online pharmacy in Canada that I geez, it's been years since I used them, but that I have used in the past, and so I'm still on their email list, and they're talking about how, so far they still have stock of all drugs, but this may not last more than a few more months, and so you might want to stock up. Now, there's a pharmacy saying this, and they're not, and I like I said, I used to do business with this company. They're very reputable. And I think that they're telling it like it is. I don't think that they're trying to goose a little extra sales right at the moment. Although one never knows, I suppose. But I've heard the same thing from my physician and from an acquaintance who owns a pharmacy down south. And so you see those supply chains being interrupted. So, typically there's really kind of 3 pieces to an economy. The third piece we'll deal with first, and that's government spending. Government spending in our economy represents between 20 and 30% of our economy. It's I don't have the exact numbers here. I'm doing this off the top of my head, but it's between $3 and $4 trillion a year, and our economy is around $21 trillion a year, whatever that math works out to. That's government spending. And that covers everything. That's police and fire and army and infrastructure and roads and schools and all the stuff that government does. Government spending can resuscitate an economy that is having problems because it injects money into the overall system. Or if government spending is pulled back significantly, it can actually cause recessions or even depressions. And we saw, I would say probably the recession, there was a deep recession during the Reagan administration, and I think it was because they were trying to cut back on government spending because it takes money out of the system. Right, and I'm not talking about the Fed, with stimulative monetary policy, with interest rates and things. What I'm talking about here is government spending or not spending. So you got that, but you can set that aside for the moment. I mean, we'll bring it into the conversation. But the two main things in the private sector, because the majority of the economy, at least 70%, or more or less 70% of the economy in the United States, is the private sector, and even in quote socialist countries, or democratic socialist countries like Finland or Denmark or Norway, 60% of the economy is the private sector. The private sector operates on two different things. One is supply and the other is demand. You have to have them both. You have to have people who have enough money or enough disposable income that they can actually buy things, so you've got demand. But at the same time, you've got to have products available in stores for them to buy. So you've got to have supply. Now, the way that you increase demand typically is by increasing wages. You increase the minimum wage, you increase demand. That stimulates the economy directly and rapidly. You can cut taxes, and if you cut taxes on the bottom 70% of Americans who pretty much spend everything they make, then that increases their spending. And so that stimulates the economy. Reagan came along and said, oh no, you don't have to worry about demand. We can forget about that. We can just flatten wages for the next 40 years, which is what he did. Wages have not gone up since the 1980s. We can just flatten wages because demand doesn't matter anymore. It's all about supply. And if there's more cool stuff in the stores, people will go into debt to buy it. They don't have to have a higher paycheck. And in a way, he was right. People did go into debt to buy it. And so, we've got, I think it was $27 trillion in credit card debt in the United States, something like that. It's a mind-boggling amount of credit card debt. And $1.5 trillion in consumer debt. And then, another, I don't recall the number. I believe it's less than $10 trillion in auto loans. And then, of course, you got, mortgages out there. So there's all this debt that people have gone into in order to maintain that lifestyle that they haven't been able to maintain. But the bottom line here is this is how an economy works. People get money, they go out and buy things. That's the demand side of the economy. Those things are in the stores so people can buy them and they can exchange money. And that's the supply side of the economy. You have to have both. Well, what's happening with this virus is it's whacking both sides of that. It is reducing supply. Now, there was an article in one of the business papers this morning, I think it was the Financial Times, about how Apple is starting to have supply problems, and you're going to start seeing shortages of Apple products. And a number of other computer companies and things like that. So people are going to be keeping them longer. They're not going to have supply. Well, not having enough supply is going to depress the economy. Similarly, the demand side. If people are worried about going to the restaurant because Trump won't allow us to have World Health Organization test kits, instead we've got to have expensive ones from big companies that donate to Republican politicians, presumably, and those companies haven't gotten around to making them yet. So people are afraid to go out, then they're not going to be spending money. They're not going to be going into stores buying things or restaurants or whatever it may be. And so demand gets hurt. People save that money instead. This is a double whammy to an economy. And in my lifetime, I've not seen such a double whammy. So if both supply and demand, let's say that they both drop by, $1 trillion, a $2 trillion hit to our GDP, If you want to make that up with government spending, you'd have to probably spend $3 trillion to make that up. And that's not going to happen, not in the current environment. So I think we need to really hunker down. I noticed yesterday that the bonds in Oregon actually took a hit in the markets yesterday, which means that investors are starting to worry that cities and states might actually default. People at the high level of investment are taking this very seriously.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
They are looking at situations where if cities, particularly smaller towns, but cities or states are completely overwhelmed, they may not be able to make their bond payments. That's Great Depression stuff. And welcome back. So, Tim in Los Angeles. Hey, Tim, what's on your mind?
I just had an epiphany yesterday. I started bowing to everybody instead of shaking their hands, as the Asians do. And I think that might be a really good practice, to replace
I agree.
hands with
and in fact,
a simple bow.
Yeah, and I'll bet anything if you could get in a time machine and go back 1,000 or 3,000 or 5,000 years, you would discover that there was a time in Asia where there was some sort of an epidemic that was transmitted person to person like this is, and that was when people began bowing to each other. And probably in India as well, because in India they also bow and also burn bodies, when people die, which is a very hyper-sanitary thing to do. So yeah, I think you're right, Tim. And in fact, I forget what show I was watching this morning, but somebody on TV was like, "Hey, let's do an elbow bump," and the doctor that they were talking to said, "No, don't do elbow bumps because that puts you within that 3-foot range where if the person breathes on you and they're sick, you've got it. Just bow, just bow." So Tim, you're onto something. Thanks a lot for the call. Terry in Santa Barbara, California. Hey, Terry, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I'm calling to talk about the airlines who are also profiteering from the schools closing. Our granddaughter is back east at an Ivy League, and the last week the fare to come home from Trenton to LAX was $147. Today it's $348 because they were told to clear out their dorms and to put everything in storage by Friday. And that was really hard. And at Stanford, the students wrote an open letter. Thousands of them signed it, talking about how difficult and expensive it would be, especially for people on support from the school. And I think that I hope the schools are stepping up. But anyway, they are going to take online classes till the end of the year. And also UCLA, that perhaps the commencements might even be canceled this year. So anyway, I was really upset about the airlines profiteering. It was in particular United Airlines. We have to get our granddaughter home from Princeton, and it's going to be really expensive because she's on financial aid, and nobody's taking account of this sort of thing for the students. That's what I wanted to say, and I thank you for everything I always hear on your program. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you, Terry. When we moved to Vermont in the late 90s from Atlanta, I'd always flown Delta, and then I had to start flying United because that was basically the only service out of Burlington, Vermont. And I continued to do that for a couple of years out here in Portland, but now I've been flying Delta and Alaska, and what I've discovered is that United is totally predatory. I mean, the ticket prices on Delta and Alaska are a fraction of what they are on United. And they get people sucked in through their frequent flyer programs and then just wring them dry. And they make it really hard for you to cancel and really hard to change flights, and there's a fee for everything. And our airlines, as they've gotten larger and larger and more monopolistic, have gotten more and more predatory. So, I totally get what you're talking about. I'm sorry to hear that your daughter is being ripped off by the airlines. Terry, thanks for sharing it with us, though. You just shared it with a whole bunch of people. Good talking to you, and thank you for watching us on YouTube there in Santa Barbara. We'll be right back. Our 1-hour free podcast recaps our show, and it's available wherever fine podcasts are found. And we have the full 3-hour podcast available over at thomhartmann.com if you want to really support our program. Welcome back. Skip in Seattle. Hey, Skip, what's on your mind today?
Oh, well, we're talking about big things, the economy here and the deaths over there and so on. But one of the small things I've noticed is that the news reports now for commercial and public radio don't give you the Dow Jones number closing. It's a percentage. What does that mean?
Well, a percentage is always going to sound, less severe. I mean, let's see. The Dow right now is down 7.44%, but it's also down 1,752 points. It's at 21,800.
So day to day, we hear the percentage up and down, but for a week's going or 2 weeks going, we can't know unless we go to the library or go to the internet or something, look it up, what the actual closing numbers were. I think that's
probably. Well, yeah, but the significance is probably not that they're trying to do happy talk. It's the reason why the percentage is really consequential right now is because trading algorithms and people who trade in stocks, and I'm not one of them, so this is real secondhand knowledge, but I read the papers. When you're in a bull market, a defined bull market, which we've been in up until this last week, means that even when the market goes up and down, as it does from day to day, and even if you get a 1,000-point drop on a particular day, that market is just going to continue steadily going up, 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 up. When a bear market is called by the stock analysts, everybody's algorithms change, everybody's expectations change, and the behavior of traders changes. So the difference between a bull market and a bear market is 20%. When you're in a bull market going up and you hit a bump and that bump goes down 10%, that's called a correction. But everybody expects that the bull market is still in effect, it's going to continue going up. When it goes down 20%, which is what they hit today, when it goes down 20%, then it's officially a bear market. And once you are officially in bear market territory, and if today closes 20 points down from the high, which was about 2 weeks ago, if the Dow closes a full 20 points down, then it's officially a bear market. That means that tomorrow and for the next probably few months, you're going to see, in all probability, the stock markets start going steadily down, not necessarily quite as rapidly, but all of the trading expectations are going to be going down. And the people who make a living on Wall Street on this, they make a living whether it goes up or down. It's the people who have, 401ks and pension funds who make out when it goes up and get hurt when it goes down. But the guys on Wall Street, when you're in a bear market, they just start betting. They just decide, instead of deciding which stocks to buy, they decide which stocks to bet against. And they make their money on those bets. They're called puts. And so the reason probably why there's been a lot of reporting around percentages over the last few days is everybody's been waiting to see if we're going to hit that 20% threshold. Just my guess, Skip, but I think that's what's going on. Skip, great to hear from you. Thank you for the call. John in Minneapolis. Hey, John, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, the population has been trained by neoliberalism and this, really excessive individualism, to essentially just write off democracy and not be involved in politics. I mean, I know that you've encouraged and successfully encouraged people to be involved, but when they don't see anything come of it, through either political party or just, very, very little come of it, it just doesn't, bode well for democracy as a whole. Populism is democracy. Why don't we just say that? The other, kind of democracy where it is just a bought-off system where, very, very wealthy interests are really the electorate and decide for us, it just doesn't work because, of course, it benefits only a few people. It doesn't benefit the entire population. So how we work out of that, I don't know. But in the issue of, say, healthcare, for instance, It's decades that we've known that these democratic socialist systems like Denmark and other, European systems, the other 33 or whatever countries that have a different system of health care, that was far superior. But we couldn't, even Hillary Clinton, I think, wanted Medicare for all way back in the day. But it's not politically tenable to...
Jimmy Carter campaigned on Medicare for all in 1980, John.
Yes. And, it was so interesting. I remember when they called it the Manchester Guardian, picking up a copy and reading about how even in Thatcher's Britain, which was like, it was like a political, more than just a political takeover. She went up to the north of the country and just wreaked havoc on those people. And she was going to privatize even the healthcare system, which they're still trying to do. The conservatives have been trying to do that for years there. But when it came down to it, a country of, at the time, 55 million people, Massachusetts, with its 5 million people population, or 6 million, or whatever it is, spent more on administrative costs than the entire system. So, it's not rational. That's the problem, is that democracy, the whole idea of democracy is that we get true information and we can make that stick. We don't, there isn't alternative truth. There is truth, and it's based on information, and it's based on, statistics and whatnot. Like the Lancet, you would think it would end the conversation. They had a group of epidemiologists had come up with a number, 450.
At Yale University.
Yes, and in the Lancet. I mean, this is not, a radical magazine.
No, it's the most prestigious medical journal in the world. And they said Medicare for all would save 68,000 lives and save trillions of dollars here in the United States. And they were right. John, I'm sorry we're out of time, but, spot on. I'm with you. And Reagan conditioned us to this. He started his inaugural address. He said, government is not the solution to the problem. Government is the cause of your problems.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
I mean, it's true government can cause some problems, but the vast majority of things government does is solving problems. There's a reason for government. There's a reason we fought a revolution to have our own government. Special match. This is just spectacular. An opportunity to really, really, really supercharge our fundraising, because we're still about $30,000 behind, and for Free Speech TV, and we really need your help. We do, the network does, the whole shooting match. And Vincent in Florida, Sam in Massachusetts, Mac in Colorado, and Steve in New York have tossed together some cash. And so your contributions today will be matched up to $10,000. So whatever you give today will be doubled. So it is a great day. If you have not yet made a contribution to Free Speech TV, if you have not yet joined our family, essentially, and become part of this great little television network that is bringing truth into your home every single day, today is your chance to do so with a punch. And this will be the last one. Tomorrow will be the last day of the pledge, but this is the only match that's coming, to the best of my knowledge, this week. So please call now. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. 877-378-8669. With a $20 gift, you get your choice of the car magnet to help get out the vote. I'm voting, are you? Or the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. These bumper stickers were made for us years ago, actually, by a guy who's a regular listener to the program. He was listening on the radio. This is probably 8-9 years ago. And they have just been so popular. He sent us a couple of boxes of them over the years, just kind of gifts them to us. And I sent a box of them to Free Speech TV, and they were like, oh, these are really great. We should give these away with a $20 gift. And it says, proud student at Thom Hartmann University, And, we like them. And we thank Caleb, the guy who put them together and sent them to us. So anyhow, that's with a $20 gift. With a $50, with a $30 gift, lest we forget,
there's the Trump toilet paper. And I just have to tell you, this Trump toilet paper is just, it's so cool. If you know that friends of like mind are coming to visit you, and for a while here, these may be less frequent, right, as we live in the era of massive pandemics. But nonetheless, if you have some friends coming over or family members, and they, and they go use the bathroom, and before they come over, you put the Trump toilet paper in the roll, then it can produce hysteria. One of our kids came over one day, and with her family, and we had put the Trump toilet paper in the guest bathroom, and she came out laughing so hard I thought she was going to fall on the floor. $30 Trump toilet paper. With a $50 gift, you get the Just Effing Vote canvas tote bag. Canvas tote bags are always good, and Just Effing Vote is always a good message. With a $75 gift, you get the Tag You're It Thom Hartmann mug to drink your coffee with in the morning. With a $120 gift, you get a variety of things that you can choose from. There's the Hidden History of the War on Voting, the Republican War on Voting, that book, which tells the story of how the GOP, once they decided, hey, that they were never going to do anything for average working people in the United States. They were just all in with the billionaires and the big polluting corporations. They had the 1% vote, but how did they get the 99% vote? And through the Reagan era and all this, they tried just BSing us basically, and it sort of worked for a while. And then people figured it out, just like they're figuring it out with Trump right now. And so what did they do? They moved over into voter suppression, to prevent people from voting. Or if they do vote, give them provisional ballots and don't count their votes. And this strategy over the last 20 years, since the 2000 election, when it was tried fairly clumsily by George W. Bush and his brother Jeb Bush, has been super fine-tuned. And this book lays it out in a small and easily read format. This is the Supreme Court book, but it's this size. It's like 180 pages. So anyway, that's with a $120 gift, or you can get one of two T-shirts. One of them is or Just Effing Vote, and the other is Ask Me About Free Speech TV, which is a fine thing. With a $240 gift, we can get together on Skype or Zoom or whatever they ultimately decide to use and hang out and have a conversation. That's our virtual meet and greet. That's with a $240 gift. With a $300 gift, there's the official Free Speech TV Get Out the Vote pack, which includes the Free Speech TV host postcards to send to friends and family to tell them about Free Speech TV and the various shows. There is the car magnet that you saw earlier. There's the Just Effing Vote tote bag, and my book, The Hidden History of the War on Voting. And all these books, all of my books, actually they're the only books we're offering right now, are autographed by the author. They're signed by me. With a $360 gift, there is a 3-book set, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court, The Hidden History of the War on Voting, and The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, all 3 autographed by the author. The gun book tells about how basically the racist history of the Second Amendment, and the Supreme Court book about how we've been screwed by the Supreme Court. And with a $1,000 gift, there's the meet and greet, come to Portland and hang out with us when things settle down. But the bottom line is we really need your help, and we need it now, and it will be doubled. 877-378-8669. Thank you. Coming up on the Science Revolution this week, first, Trump is using the same logic on COVID-19 that he used for pesticides and pollution. And I'll explain why that's not a good thing. Nilay Marian, Forestry and Biodiversity Framework Coordinator with Friends of the Earth International, is here. Can we stop mass extinctions? Eva Hamer, Legal Coordinator of Direct Action Everywhere, drops by on her article, Why I Went Topless at Costco. Plus, geeky science. This is what happens when public transit is free. But wait, there's more. Tune in to the Science Revolution wherever fine podcasts are found. And you'll recall a couple of days ago,
You recall a couple of days ago that Marilyn, I believe was her name, called up, and she had talked with us before, said that she was the pardon me, I'm checking a wire here. She was the mother of a young man who had been a Marine, and then he got out and he couldn't find a job that had health care. And so he re-enlisted into the National Guard, and they shipped him off to Afghanistan. And he was telling her, talking to Mom, telling her that a bunch of guys on his base, in his company, were sick with a dry cough and a high fever. And they could not get coronavirus test kits to determine what it was they had. But the country of Afghanistan has reported 5 cases. So, coronavirus is in Afghanistan. And I told her that I would forward her information along to Congressman Mark Pocan and Congressman Ro Khanna. And I spoke with Ro Khanna on the phone yesterday, and his chief of staff called her, and they're still looking into it. And I haven't spoken with Mark Pocan yet. He's going to be with us tomorrow. But I saw this story. He did send me back a note saying, I'm on it. But here's this story in today's Huffington Post. And this is by Molly Redden. Amid concerns that the coronavirus may spread at U.S. military facilities in countries experiencing big outbreaks, the Department of Defense has not said if all facilities abroad have the means to test people for the virus. Representative Mark Pocan, Democrat of Wisconsin, said in a statement, quote, "We asked the Department of Defense whether the Army has coronavirus testing kits physically at all bases abroad. After following up, they are still unable to tell us a yes or no answer. Does every military base overseas have current access to coronavirus test kits?" A Defense Department official did not immediately respond to a request for more information. A senior Pentagon official told Pocan's office to anticipate more information on Friday, but, quote, provided no real answers, end quote, as of Thursday. That would be today. And then they go on and they say, Pocan's office contacted the Pentagon based on a report that several military personnel on a base in Afghanistan were experiencing flu-like symptoms, which are a potential sign of infection. The unnamed military base is a few miles from a town in Afghanistan with 5 known cases of COVID-19, Pocan said, and 75 miles from the border with Iran, where cases of the virus have surpassed 10,000. It is not clear where personnel have conducted operations or what other precautions might be in place. And then Pocan wraps it up. He says, the fact that we cannot figure out this basic answer for our troops serving abroad is very concerning. I hope that the military can get us a definitive answer immediately. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Ivan in Chicago, in Bartlett, Illinois, excuse me. Ivan, you are our caller of the day. Which autographed book did you ask for?
You just sent me a book.
Oh, okay. Oh, you were our caller today. I'm sorry. It's 3-4. Okay, so it's part of your name.
And I got
so
it
what's up, Ivan?
I just started reading it. Thank you.
Oh, great. Okay, so what's on your mind today?
Hey, we have a pandemic.
Yes, I noticed.
First of all, the lawmakers need to max out funding so that we have first responders and healthcare workers have the hazmat suits and everything else they need. And
well, the first step is for Trump to declare a state of emergency so that FEMA can unlock their $40 billion war chest, and if necessary, in particularly hard-hit areas, start opening basically, triage units and MASH units kind of things to take the load off local hospitals and things. But Trump won't do that because he's afraid that it'll make the stock market go down even farther because it'll look bad.
Well, who cares? The lawmakers need to pass laws and let Trump do so.
I agree. And Nancy Pelosi is getting this stuff out of the House, and Patty Murray tried to introduce legislation into the Senate that would deal with people not being paid because they can't go to work, and it got killed by Lamar Alexander. And there's another piece, I'm not sure who introduced it, but I was talking about it earlier. Here's the story right here. Let's see, who introduced this? It doesn't say who introduced it. Okay, Republicans are holding up progress on legislation for coronavirus because of abortion. The key sticking point in the talk appears to be the Republican demands to include Hyde Amendment language in the bill to prevent any federal funding from being used for abortion. This is not legislation that has anything to do with abortion. It's to fund, provide additional funding to our hospitals. But Ivan, spot on. You are absolutely right. Thank you for the call. Janet in Evans, Colorado. Hey, Janet, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, how you doing?
Good. What's up?
I have a question for you. You're staying home because, you don't want to be subject, to people that are sick and stuff like that.
And alternatively, I don't want to give it to anybody because I was just on a bunch of airplanes and I'm still within that 3-week window when I could become symptomatic. And if I picked something up, I don't want to be giving it to Nate and Sean.
Right. And so far, I don't think, I'm just north of Denver, and so I think so far we don't really have any cases that I've heard of. But I'm trying to avoid going out into public because, I've had asthma my whole life, so I consider myself high risk. And in 10 days, I have jury duty. And so this is something that you can't voluntarily or involuntarily attend. You have to be there. And I'm going to be in a room with a whole bunch of people, and, everybody will be coughing and everything else. So I'm just wondering.
Have you bailed out of jury duty before, Janet?
Have I done what?
Have you bailed out of jury duty? When they send you your notice, you can send them back a letter saying, I'd like to postpone this one time. And then 6 months or a year later, they'll come back and say, it's time for jury duty this time.
No, I haven't, but I was.
Okay.
Well, I
would contact them right now and just say, given the public health situation right now, I will not come in for jury duty, but I'm not going to shirk my civic responsibility. And once this crisis is over, I would be happy to serve. And I would be amazed if you got any pushback at all.
Okay, because it says on there, like if there's a reason that, you want to, delay it or whatever, you have to do it by the 9th. And I just read it yesterday, so it's a little bit past the 9th. You think they'll still cooperate?
I think they will. And if you want to make sure that they could, you might, if you get a doctor's note. If you have been in any large public meetings in the last couple of weeks, your doctor might be stretching things a little bit to say, or you might be to say, I may have been exposed to the coronavirus and I am self-quarantining because I don't have access to a test kit. That might do it. Normally I encourage people to do their civic duty and do jury duty, but I would not do jury duty right now.
Yeah, because, nobody has talked about it, and this is, something that, everybody's going to get a notice every day. And it's like, oh, you have to appear for jury duty. And it's like, I don't think so,
I'm guessing a lot of trials that are I believe it was New York State. It might have been California, but one of our states just said, we're not going to have any trials where the person is not in jail. We're only going to have trials for people who are in jail. In other words, the really serious cases.
Yeah, because, Governor Polis has already, got us on a state of emergency.
Right. So, you could reference all those things. But I would be very worried about that. Janet, thank you for the call. Good luck, and, let us know how it works out. It reminds me of something, by the way, that I've been writing about that'll be popping up probably in the next week or two, if it can push through the coronavirus concerns. And that is that there was a decision by the Supreme Court. It was called Ex parte Milligan in 1866. And I don't recall if it was Lincoln or Johnson. If it was Lincoln, it would have been before the court for a year or so before they finally made the decision. If it was Johnson, it would have been more contemporary. I think it was Lincoln, though. Wanted to try a civilian with a military court. Now, of course, this was during or immediately after the Civil War. And the Supreme Court said in Ex parte Milligan, you may not use the functions, the facilities of martial law, that is to say a military court. You may not use a military court to try civilians. But if you dig into it, and you can read this yourself, I just was reading it yesterday. If you dig into Ex parte Milligan, the Supreme Court goes on to say that if the courts are unable to meet because of a national crisis, if the courts are unable to pull together a jury because of a national crisis, then declaring martial law is within the province of the president, and using military tribunals to try civilians is acceptable. So that really raised my eyebrows because I'm thinking Trump, I'm thinking, how does he declare martial law? Well, if we hit a point where enough of our court system has been crippled to meet that relatively vague threshold that the Supreme Court set in 1866 in Ex parte Milligan, Trump could declare martial law and say that anybody that he's got a dispute with is going to be tried before a military tribunal instead of a civilian tribunal. And under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, military tribunals are very, very different things than civilian tribunals. We'll be back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
More of your calls in just a minute. Stick around. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Mark in Woodstock, New York, listening on WIOF. Is that a commercial station, Mark, or a non-commercial station?
Non-commercial.
Okay, great.
Hey,
so we're on the air live. Hey, what's up, Mark?
Hey, Tom. I have a daughter who's an adult woman with severe autism. We've talked about this before. She lives in a group home. She's nonverbal, has totally no comprehension about coronavirus or anything dealing like that.
Sure.
People with developmental disabilities are, they have. So she lives in a group home with 5 other women with severe developmental disabilities. They've got staff coming in, different shifts and so forth like that. They go out to day programs, and they have no, they can't be under these rules about or advisories about not putting something in your mouth because they have no idea what's going on. And the staff that comes in are also completely underpaid. They're working for chump change. They're working for $12.30 an hour doing life and death work. And I'm just talking to advocate for people with developmental disabilities who can't speak for themselves in this crisis. They have no idea what's going on. And there are a lot of people like that.
And a lot of those people who are doing that work, and I suspect that we're going to find when the postmortem is done that there's a similar situation among these 3 elder care facilities in the Seattle area, where it appears that staff has been moving from facility to facility and spreading the coronavirus that way. That these are people who are not only poorly paid, but they have no sick days, they have no paid sick days, and in some cases they have no health care benefits. And if we were to join the rest of the civilized world and cease becoming the only developed country in the world that doesn't mandate paid sick time off, and the only developed country in the world that doesn't have a national health care system, if we were to join the rest of the world, it would improve the lot of your daughter and people in her situation as well as people in elder care situations, Mark.
Well, fortunately, she's under Medicaid right now, and she's getting good medical care, but as far as we've got people coming in and out of the house, they go to day program, they're out in the community, they're touching things that you can't tell them, don't touch this, don't touch that. They don't know. A lot of them, like my daughter, have pica. How would you say this? Pica, which means they put inedibles in their mouths. And
oh, right. Yeah. People who eat plastic and dirt and stuff, yeah. Which sometimes that's a sign of a nutritional deficiency, isn't it?
Well, it's more of the way I understand it, is part of her developmental disability. I could be. I've read about people that actually eat like dirt, and they're the ones who have nutritional
They're mineral
problems.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Anyway, I was just trying to advocate for people who can't talk for themselves.
Good on you.
Also
good on you, Mark. Yeah.
Well,
thank you. Thank you for the call, and yeah, good talking to you, Carl in Ocala, Florida. Hey, Carl. I think we've got a minute left.
Oh, wow. I'll make it quick. We talked a few weeks
Carl,
ago.
let me put you on hold and I'll pick you up on the other side. I was reading my clock wrong. It's brand new to me doing this from home. 49 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back. Stick around. Hey, did you know that Hillary Clinton actually won Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Florida in the 2016 election? It's on page 92 of my new book, The Hidden History of the War on Voting. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Carl in Ocala, Florida. Hey, Carl, what's up?
Hey, it's good talking with you again. We talked a couple of weeks ago and had a really interesting conversation about strategic versus tactical kinds of planning. Mm-hmm. And this whole mess, I wouldn't want anybody to picture me as an 82-year-old quivering at a corner in my house because I run a couple miles each day and I still work out pretty good. Anyway, I talked to one of my many offspring, Marines, active duty in Japan or near Japan and in the Yakutka Islands. They didn't get kits from the Department of Defense, but they were provided by the Japanese government as whatever they need. Kind of amazing. Wow. We can't take care of our own, but I said here...
I'll be sure to tell Congressman Pocan about that tomorrow.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Well, that's what he told me. So anyway, that's what two of them told me. The thing I was going to comment about was in the whole test kit thing. One of my titles in the first half of my life was captain. I was a Marine. And my title of doctor is the last half of my life. I've been hearing a lot of rumors that I can't chase down about a self-application test kit being developed. One of the questions I wanted to ask was, have you heard of anything like that?
A do-it-yourself test kit? You mean like the HIV test kits you can get through Amazon?
Yeah, with instructions to mail it in, I guess, to some lab or some. It's probably a moneymaker for some lab, but I don't know.
If Ron Klein, who was Obama's czar for the whole Ebola thing, if what he said last night on MSNBC was correct, that these two companies, Quest and LabCorp, I think the other one was, or something like that, that these two large for-profit companies are the only ones that Donald Trump and the Trump administration are allowing to be certified to provide test kits in America. And that's why we've gone 3 months without these low-cost World Health Organization certified test kits like they have in Japan, like they gave your son in Japan. If that's what's going on, and these are for-profit companies, and this is all about the free market, then it wouldn't surprise me if a few months down the road they start popping up in online sources or in local pharmacies.
Well, it's just we've seen such an enormous failure in the strategic planning, which should have occurred some time ago. But this how do I describe him? This 73-year-old, orange-haired, astoundingly ignorant buffoon that occupies the Oval Office currently stands there and tells us anybody can get a kit. I called my local other doctors. I'm retired now, and our county health department and a number of other agencies. They have no idea about kits. They suggest you could come in and try to show symptoms. If you can demonstrate symptoms, they might put you in the queue for kits, and no guarantee that it'll be a day or two or three or a week or whatever to get a response.
Wow.
It's beyond belief. Have you heard? Yeah, I'm sorry. Have you heard anything at all about a definitive answer? Not 1 million by Wednesday or 2 million by this Friday or 100,000, which turned out to be 75,000. Any definitive answers to actually how many kits have been approved and disseminated? I can't find anything anywhere.
The closest I've gotten to that is between 5,000 and 7,000 nationwide so far through CDC. But I'm not even sure I trust that number because they're no longer publishing those numbers. Carl, I got to move along, but thank you. If you get any information, give me a shout. Chandler in Russellville, Arkansas. Hey, Chandler, what's on your mind?
Oh, not too much. How you doing today, Tom? I was calling about the trucking industry. If anybody's really thought about that concept about spreading.
Are you a trucker?
Virus across the country. I am. And I was thinking
Are
about
truckers talking about this among themselves?
I haven't really talked to anybody about it myself. I lean to the left, and most truckers are conservative, so it's hard to really get a good fix on anything like that. But I mean, as far as spreading it across, as far as if I picked it up in Seattle, I haven't been there yet, but somebody picks up in Seattle and cuts across I-90 or out of Portland on 84, And, every time you stop, if you're, like they say, if it lingers in the air for 3 hours after you've been there, you're going to be spreading it around along the way as you go across the country.
Or if it's on if it's on a stainless steel surface. I mean, if you're having lunch in a truck stop, and even if it's plastic tabletop, if it's got that stainless steel strip around the edge, the virus will live 3 days on stainless steel.
Or the plastic for the coffee.
This is it's starting to pop up in. I mean, there's only 3 or 4 states now that don't have reported cases, and keep in mind the reported cases are somebody who got tested, and in order to get tested, you got to jump through so many damn hoops. You got to be super sick, which means that for every person who got tested, there's probably a lot out there. I don't want to just throw numbers around, but there's probably a lot of them out there that are walking around half sick or don't even know that they're sick, and they're going to get sick. And it's just like we are. This is tip of the iceberg territory here, Chandler. Do truckers still talk to each other on CB radio?
They do. Everybody's a little bit younger, so the older ones still talk on the radio, tell stories about the old days, and we get together and stuff, talk here and there. So,
but you haven't heard any truckers talking about the coronavirus. I'm surprised.
No, not myself. I've had my CB off for a little while because I kind of got tired of all the chitter chatter. So. A lot of them think. A lot of them think the Putz is the perfect guy running the country. So, who knows?
Yeah, and that's the message on Fox News and on Right Wing Hate Radio is "Don't worry, be happy." And
and that's what those guys. A lot of those guys listen to that stuff too. So.
Yep. And sadly, I think you're going to have a lot of dead conservatives as a result. Chandler, thanks a lot for the call. Thanks for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget democracy ain't a spectator sport, buddy. Get out there, get active, or stay home and get active. Tag You're It, and tell your friends how they can find progressive media. Thanks again for being with us, and we will see you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
3 days to go. It's Wednesday, and we have a new premium. And by the way, thanks to the